Theophilus, 1900 years ago, you paid a Greek doctor named Luke to write a two-part history of Christianity. The first part told of the life and death of a poor first-century Palestinian Jew called Rabbi Yeshua. The second part was the Acts of the Apostles, the story of the founding of the Christian church, recording the life of a Jewish convert to Christianity named Saul of Tarsus, the apostle we know as Paul. Acts of the Apostles ends with Paul's final trip to Jerusalem to reconcile with Jesus' brother James at the temple, only to be rejected, then spark a riot, and be thrown into prison. What Luke failed to mention was that Paul arrived in Jerusalem with 20 Gentiles, delivering a large collection of gold, a polite bribe.
I mean, yeah, there's problems, because he had what he thought was the agreement. It blew up. He had a part with Barnabas. He had to cuss out Peter.
They might see it as a bribe to accept the full panoply of the Pauline gospel.
What they want is for Gentiles to pay for the privilege of being part of the Jesus movement.
Paul himself had to claim that his revelation of Jesus could trump their earlier association with the living Jesus.
Part of the deal of what God is doing is that God is starting one single family.
But many Jews would say, yeah, this is a renegade. Don't have anything to do with him. Don't take a gift from him.
What's this guy trying to do? Is this a bribe?
If he thought it was a sweetener that they would happily take, why does he express any apprehension that they mightn't?
Why did he bring it? He could have told his co-workers to do it.
For 58 AD, the Apostle Paul was an old man, having lived to be well over 60. After 3 decades of missionary tours, he was worn down, but desired to continue. Sitting in Corinth, pondering his next journey, he writes a letter to the believers in Rome. Chapter and verse tell of God's plan to redeem the Gentiles and the Jews in a new kingdom, and he speaks of his pleasure in soon meeting the Roman Christians, here or beyond. Then, with great foreboding, he pleads with the Church of Rome to pray for 2 things: that I may be delivered from the unbelievers in Judea, and that my collection for Jerusalem may be acceptable to the saints.
Those are the 2 things he's worried about. The Jews were out to get him because he was a Pharisee who betrayed the whole thing, and the Christians who may not accept that collection.
The historian Josephus records that the Jewish people were mounting the first in the series of revolts, and as a result, the temple had stopped all gifts or sacrifices from foreigners. Paul's offering would have been no different.
People would have been whispering about Paul, there would have been discussions, there would have been murmurings of this in advance.
But why would Paul, after nearly 30 years of ministry to the Gentiles, still fear the acceptance of his collection, a gift he was offering to Jesus' original church?
James and Peter and the other apostles were still highly suspicious of him and of his motives.
The mystery, then, is why did Paul turn back? Why not find another way without risking his life or the lives of those that traveled with him, as well as inviting more rejection from his Jewish brethren? To answer this question, we must dig beneath Luke's long-accepted story and explore Paul's very own letters that give us new insight on the events that lead up to this final showdown.
was a blinding light with a human form in the middle of it.
Like standing in front of a landing light of an aircraft coming in, something like that.
He's confronted by the heavenly Jesus.
For Paul, this transformation around 33 AD would serve as the most dramatic turning point of his life, a profound revelation that would change him forever.
He has an experience that seems to have made him say, in effect, oh my God, what I have been opposing is in fact true after all.
Not only is he not blameless, but he's opposing the will of God volte-face directly.
This is the complete overturning of all the agendas that Saul of Tarsus has been on about.
Paul must have thought back to his life as a boy in the Roman city of Tarsus, how he had left his home to travel to Jerusalem to become a Pharisee, and how he had persecuted the early Christ followers. Was it possible that this same Jesus was reaching out to him? How could that be? And why was it happening? To understand what this vision meant, Paul didn't go to Jerusalem to see Peter or James, but instead traveled through the desert towards Nabatea in Arabia.
He has been going back through the Hebrew scriptures in his mind and in his heart. Genesis, Deuteronomy, Psalms, Isaiah, Jeremiah. What's it all about? How can I understand this with Jesus at the heart of it?
He would have realized pretty quickly that this means some pretty radical reformation of some of the things he thought about God, he thought about Jesus, he thought about the law.
Paul is working in a wrinkle in time. He has a very small gap between the resurrection of Jesus and Jesus' second coming.
Paul believed that because Jesus had risen from the dead, the kingdom had begun, and with it, all human distinctions had passed away. There is no longer Jew or Greek. There is no longer slave or free. There is no longer male and female, for all of you are one in Christ Jesus. While traveling through the windstorms and open plains, Paul spent his time seeking out the scriptures, like Isaiah and Jeremiah, to find greater understanding. He would eventually find in Abraham a role model for his own experience.
That Abraham loomed large for Paul before his Christ experience would not be in any way unusual or rare, or it would be, it's like Thomas Jefferson or Abraham Lincoln for most Americans.
Abraham, too, was a man given a promise by God to lead a chosen people before the time of Moses and the law, which made him acceptable as an outsider. I will make you into a great nation, and I will bless you, for all peoples on earth will be blessed through you.
Gentiles, when God's kingdom was proclaimed, would stop worshiping their native deities and realize that they had this opportunity to worship the Jewish God, who was properly the God of the whole universe.
As Paul arrived in Nabatea, armed with a new sense of his calling, he was ready for action.
He's not going to hang around. When he comes back, having done business with God, having said his prayers, of course he goes to the synagogue and says he's the Messiah.
From being the opponent of pagans coming in without, say, circumcision if they're male, to saying that's what he's called to tell them.
But he's going to take the message of the gospel to the Gentiles.
For the self-proclaimed apostle to the Gentiles, God was revealing something which meant a whole new way of seeing the world.
It's showtime right now. The Act 1 is about to begin, and that means we're not rehearsing anymore. We don't have to be cautious. Everything comes down to this moment right now.
Paul preached in the synagogues at Petra and tried to persuade Jews and Gentiles alike that the end was coming and all should repent before the great judgment. However, Paul quickly learned that not all of his audience would embrace his new vision.
So Paul's already in hot water. He's already the poster boy that whose picture should be up on the wall in the local post office of "Have you seen this man?"
After 3 years of failure, Paul was left without possibilities, support, friends, or even a home. It was only then that he turned his attention to Jerusalem. No longer a Pharisee, and with a history as persecutor, Paul needed support spiritually and financially. It was time to tell of his vision to those who knew Jesus best, hoping he could win their support. With an Arabian sun setting on his back, Paul headed back to the hallows of the temple in Jerusalem to find Jesus' closest apostles. Paul knew all eyes would be watching him upon his return. He would need to make friends with those he had been terrorizing only 3 years earlier. There was great suspicion and fear.
If somebody is violently persecuting a movement and then suddenly claims to be part of it, anyone who's in a persecuted group would likely be suspect.
It would take another former Pharisee, Barnabas, an old friend of Paul, to make the introductions in Jerusalem and assure them that he was a changed man and one who could be trusted. Paul tells us that he had a brief passing with James. No words were exchanged, leaving a certain distance between them. Paul engaged in a private conversation with Peter, the current leader of the church, which he said lasted 15 days. In a private meeting with those who seemed to be leaders, I explained the gospel that I had been preaching to the Gentiles. There must have been some resistance to Paul in his vision in the desert. After all, it was Peter, James, and John who knew Jesus of Galilee, those who had heard him preach about God's kingdom and their future in it as one of the 12 pillars.
Well, now, why should we believe this? This didn't happen in our midst. Didn't happen on our watch. We weren't there. None of us saw this happen.
Paul had not been one of those disciples up in Galilee. He was Johnny-come-lately to this movement, and he could never compete with Peter in that. So it's understandable that he'd then focus on what he thought was important and where he came in as specially commissioned by Christ himself.
Paul reports a successful first meeting, though his description seems to mock his fellow apostles. Recognizing the grace that God had given me, James and Peter and John, who are supposed to be the pillars of the church, accepted Barnabas and myself as partners and shook hands upon it.
I sought the right hand of fellowship from the pillar apostles. Not that I needed it, he says. Not that I needed it, not so much.
It seems, as far as they were concerned, Paul still needed to earn his trust and prove his vision.
Well, we're really glad you're converted, but you're too hot to handle here. So we're sending you home. You go home, you practice this gospel out there in Cilicia and Tarsus.
Okay, let's part ways here. You do your thing with the Gentiles, we'll do our thing with the Jews, and maybe let's not talk too much.
In the 40s AD, Paul was sent to work under Barnabas as his protege in Antioch, which already had a thriving community. The immediate need was an effort to raise money for famine relief in Jerusalem. From Antioch, Paul also traveled with Barnabas to synagogues in Asia Minor, telling of Jesus the Messiah and raising money for Jerusalem. Paul would find a potential audience in pagans that attended the synagogue, a group that Acts calls God-fearers or God-worshippers.
Barnabas goes to the synagogue and tries to convert Jews. And as long as Paul is operating with Barnabas, he's kind of pulled that way. Now, he may be more interested in the pagans or the God worshippers.
These people weren't potential converts to Judaism. They were normal, ancient, majority culture people who enjoyed knowing about different powerful gods. Jews worshipped a powerful God. Gentiles would show up.
While their gospel continued to spread, Paul took more of an interest in these Gentiles, causing friction with Barnabas and their agreed-upon mission. Now it was Paul's vision to the Gentiles that was paramount. It seems Paul's gospel of freedom, the message he had received directly from Jesus, would push beyond the boundaries of his mentor Barnabas, offering a message of salvation that no longer required adherence to Jewish law.
They don't want that to infringe on what the Jews, which seems to me to be to them kind of like the real mission. They don't want that to be threatened.
Paul and Barnabas begin to have some tension there. And at some point, there's a big fight, and Paul decides he's going to go his own way.
When faced with persecution in the town of Lystra, it was Paul alone, not Barnabas, who was beaten, driven to the edge of town, and almost killed. Barnabas had enough and would return to Antioch with reports that would, in the end, reach Jerusalem. Paul had finally gone beyond the boundaries of the synagogue with a mission directly to the Gentiles.
He's beginning to see a different mission. I think he begins to see, you go for the capitals. That's what you do. You don't do this Barnabas city hopping along a Roman road. You go for the capitals. And then in the capital, you go to the synagogue and you focus on the God worshippers.
He would have been completely talking over the heads of his Gentile audience unless they had been somewhat familiar with Jewish scriptures.
He would be joined by others from Antioch who shared his vision, and new converts including Titus, a Greek disciple, Timothy, his protege, and Silas. The God of the Jews was doing miracles in the hearts of foreigners. Men and women of all races and religions were responding to the power of Christ to heal and bring us salvation from a menacing world. And though he knew his mission was growing more controversial with the other apostles, he had never been directly confronted.
He wants the Gentiles to come to Jesus as Gentiles. He sees no need for them to convert first to Judaism. So there's no need for them to keep Jewish dietary regulations, no need for them to be circumcised.
This creates enormous tension with those who believe that faith in Jesus is a Jewish phenomenon.
Word eventually reached Paul that Jesus' brother James was calling on him to return to Jerusalem, a trip that would have taken 2 weeks and given Paul time to ponder what Barnabas had told the others. Did he still have their support regarding a Gentile mission, or had he been operating alone for 14 years? He had gambled all or nothing on his revelation in the desert, and now Jerusalem could end his missionary activity. He was hoping he could work out a deal. Living in Jerusalem, James was more aware and connected to the current political climate and the history that had brought his people bad attention at times, followed by great sorrow. Sometime earlier, trouble broke out on the town of MELCHIZEDEK, some 30 miles to the west of Jerusalem. The Greek population of the town, to provoke the Jews, erected a statue in the honor of Caligula, only to have a Jewish mob promptly tear it down. When the emperor heard of this, he commissioned a massive statue of himself dressed as Jupiter and commanded the governor to Syria to set it up in the temple. These kinds of acts were fueling their animosity with Gentile integration, which could be seen as a political enabling of the enemy.
He fuses Jewish and Gentile mentalities, and they want to say no to the Gentile world, and as a result, they hate Paul.
James solidified his rule over the Judean churches, and in doing so, made churches more in line with the Jewish tradition.
James replaced Peter. And indeed, then James became critical of Paul.
We're still very leery of Paul and why he had suddenly become this great convert.
He was a Nazarite himself, which meant he worked at the temple and would have been more scrutinizing of Jewish laws and customs.
James's nickname, the James the Just or James the Righteous, is evidence of the high esteem he was held in as being a strict observer of the Torah.
Paul entered the meeting with his Greek disciple Titus, prepared to perform a circumcision as proof of his loyalty. Along with James and Peter, in the room were men he calls false brethren, who seemed to want to force his hand.
He dared to present the Jerusalem apostle with one of the Gentiles that he had converted.
Poor old Titus is standing there as a very nervous visual aid, I guess.
He's forcing them to kind of like address this in an actual person and say, you really want me to circumcise this man? You really want to go there?
There is already a faction in Jerusalem that insists before you can be a Christian, you got to be a Jew. Paul doesn't like him.
They could have said, why don't you go ahead and circumcise Titus? Do you have training in that, by the way? Or they could have just kicked him out and said, absolutely not. Who do you think you are, Paul of Tarsus?
They were in the room demanding Paul compromise or even deny his vision and conform his Gentile message to Jewish law. This meant all adult males would need to be circumcised.
That didn't necessarily represent the view of James or Peter or Barnabas. They were kowtowing to the hard right edge of the movement. They were going, oh, let's make nice, let's make peace, not war, and Paul's going, these are first principles, and we're not budging on this. Salvation is by grace through faith for everybody, and that means Gentiles don't have to get circumcised.
Circumcision is just the solution to the problem being advocated by Judean Christ followers. They say, if these people become Judeans through circumcision, you can eat with them.
I explained the gospel that I had been preaching to the Gentiles. Titus was with me, and although he is a Gentile, no one forced him to be circumcised. The apostles, for now, seem to have sided with Paul. However, this new compromise did not solve the issue of shared meals, which meant eating with Gentiles and also drinking the new cup of fellowship.
And the Lord's Supper, we know, involved passing around one loaf and one cup. That means passing it around and sipping it.
Does everyone observe kosher? In other words, do the pagans have to observe kosher? Or does nobody observe kosher?
It's not just, a dinner party that we might have. It's a much more significant event.
And if you don't eat with Gentiles, you're saying the body of Christ is divided. And that doesn't make sense to Paul.
Mic check, mic check. If I could be heard, give me a Yahoo up in the chat. If I could be heard, mic check. If I can be heard, let me know if I can be heard. Give me a Yahoo up in the chat. All right, let me click this off real quick. Bang. Let's work. All right, so I just dropped that link in the chat for y'all that want to watch that whole link. It's always good to watch, quote unquote scholars or whatever, even though they disagree about a gang of almost everything. It'd be good to watch and see what's going on. You dig? Bless up to the family. I see y'all in the building. Bless up. I see y'all in the building. Imai Robbie Dobson. Blessings. Adino Israel. Eliyahu Yerbiyahu. Bless up. Yahoo. Essene Nazarene Lemuel. Bless up. Shalom. Yahoo. Kila Olam Kazdo. Blessings. Set apart living. Blessings. Nakam Yam Abarak. Elder. Blessings. Y'all in the building. My brother Joseph Ben Israel. Blessings. What's the word? Good to see y'all in the building. YAH'S dreaded Nazir. My Nazir, my Nazarite brethren from Cali. Blessing. What's the word? My brother Stephen, Spiritual Light Shop. Bless up, brother. Blessings to the faith that's in the building. I see y'all in the building. Bless up. Creator gang. Boy, hey. Let me not go there. But hey, all praises. I see y'all in the building. Who else we got in here? Sir Williams off Facebook. My Prince Yehuda Levi. Blessings. Hold your head, Hebrew. You already know. Who else we got? Selah Shalom, my beloved brother. Excellent debate last night. Excellent sword session. I'm gonna chop it up in clips a little bit later on and share it on social media. But excellent sword session. Ooh-wee. All right, who else we got up in the building? Joseph Evans in the building, my beloved brother. Bless up, bless up. I see y'all. Zofit, my beloved brother, created gang. That's right. Elisa Edwards, my beloved sister, the wife of my brother, Deuel. Bless up. Blessings to the family. And may the Most High understand, send those angels or those spirits of comfort into the family, into the mind, body, and spirit of your family. All praises. May the Most High bless the memory of your mother, my sister Lisa. Bless up. Naima Zion, I see you in the building. Bless up. Bless up. My aunt Caleb. Right? Hey, respect to my brother Caleb, man. Caleb came on last night, you dig? And he said it was his first time. And he stood, hey, look, he stood his ground. So it's all good. You get much respect over this way, Caleb. Whenever you want to come back on the channel, let me know. And let's go ahead and rock out. I believe that. All right, Jerry Manuel, bless up, bless up. Emar said apart living, bless up. I see y'all. I see y'all in the building. Stephen Mikael Key, shalom, shalom. I see y'all in the building, man. All praise and glory now to the Most High. All praise and glory now to the Most High. All right, so look, y'all see the title. We on Nazarene edition, part 83. All right, now who did the Messiah ordain? This is very important. I know today we talk a lot about splits and how come everybody can't get along, and you know, all the extras that we love to talk about. You understand? All the extras that everybody love to talk about. And what we don't realize is the movement of Messiah was far more radical than what, you know what I mean, what you've been romanticizing and believing. If we got time, we'll get into some of this today too. Operation Messiah, must read. This deal go hard. Nazarenes all in this deal. All right. St. Paul, Roman intelligence, and the birth of Christianity. Dig? And as you see, this ain't about, you know, none of us melanated folk. They putting all this stuff out there. Y'all check that out, man. This is very, very, it goes into basically the ancient COINTELPRO that was going on in ancient Israel to shut down the Messianic movement in Palestine. All right. And that was a highly organized movement. Like, a lot of us really don't get into it. I would highly suggest I just start rereading it again. All right. Not the antiquity, but get into the wars. The wars. Because it's a lot of stuff that parallels what you read. And it's very, very powerful. Then you understand that the war with Rome that Jerusalem fell to in 70 AD, y'all, that was a messianic war. Over 1 million bodies dropped. Over 1 million bodies dropped in that. You understand? It was highly organized. Some battles the Israelites won. We was minting our own coins and all that, but that was a messianic war for them brothers and sisters. They thought the world was over. All right. So I would suggest all the bros that really want to get down on the history part of this thing, right? Get into the wars of the Jews in the back. What we call Flavius Josephus, the works of Josephus, huh? You keep running. When you really get into history, guess who you're going to keep running into? You're going to keep running to them Flavians. Josephus was a Flavian court historian. In the back of this Josephus right here. And there's many arguments about who he was or who he wasn't. That's what it is. But I would highly suggest start right here. This really start, you know what I mean, dealing with when the Greeks came into Jerusalem. You dig? But I jumped up to where the death of Herod the Great, from the death of him, all right, and just start reading in all the way up into the fall of Jerusalem. Man, you're going to be like, wow. It's so much, you understand? So much has been left out. So some of the stuff we be getting into also, you know, we get down a little taste over here, man, do a little studying. Also, y'all already know, y'all see the thumbnail, right? All right, this is Robert Eisman, Professor Robert Eisman, James, the brother of Jesus and the Dead Sea Scrolls, the historical James, Paul, the enemy, and Jesus or Yeshua's brothers as apostles. And that's major right there. The fact that historically speaking, if we're gonna go with the biblical narrative, historically speaking, the Messiah, a lot of his apostles were some of his brothers. And if it's brothers, then it's bloodline. If it's bloodline, guess what they call it today, y'all? A caliphate. That ain't got nothing to do with Islam. It's the right to rule through bloodline. It's the right to lead through bloodlines. It's a caliphate. You got Yahshua, James the just, his biological brother, Simeon Bar, his biological brother, Jude right before Judah, right before Revelations, his biological brother. These men were ruling the whole Jerusalem assembly. You understand? Up until the fall of Jerusalem. So it's a lot going on, historically speaking, that we've been romanticized out. You hear the word Roman, romanticized out. You dig? So if you have a historical mind and you want to, navigate these things and look at your belief through more of a historical lens, then I would suggest tackling this thing from a historical standpoint as well. You understand? And it's a lot of amazing jewels, I must say. All right, a lot of amazing jewels. First things first. Let me share my screen. Let's rock. Let's go ahead and throw down. Good to see y'all in the building. Bless up, clip up. Shout out to all the haters, jaw jackers, and naysayers. We love y'all too. Believe that. We actually love our enemies. You know what I mean? Because we be all in y'all mouth. Y'all give us free promotion, and more people come to the channel and be like, dang, let me check the bros and them out. Dang, that's deep. Never tripped off that. Yeah. Yeah, so shout out to the haters, jaw jackers, and naysayers. I always was told if you don't got haters, you're doing something wrong. All right? So look, let me share the screen real quick, and let's eat. Let's eat. First, we're going to go to is the book of Acts of the Apostles. Let's share a screen. All right. You ain't got to be scared of your Bible. Don't be scared of it. Let's get into it. You're going to start seeing a lot of things a lot of jewels that we don't be tripping off of. It's a lot of jewels we don't trip off of, man. Lots of them. To be so caught up in religiosity and speed reading. Slow down. You know what I mean? You may learn something. All right. So all praises, abundant blessings to everybody in the chat. Believe that and note that. Yeah, so fit. I hear you. I hear you. Most definitely. All right, so let's get into this real quick. All right, Acts chapter 1. I'm going to start at verse 1. I'm going here first to show you there's criteria. If we're going to talk about who the Messiah ordained, there's a curriculum. There's protocol. In any movement, it got to be protocol. It got to be codes of conduct and how we properly maneuver. You understand? Because if what you are doing and what you're speaking about is really a threat, then you better believe that the powers that be will do everything they can to infiltrate that and destroy it. And if they can't destroy it physically, they'll destroy it with information. Look at it. They did that with the Panthers. I remember I was watching Black Messiah about Fred Hampton and all that. Man, the feds was actually circulating false propaganda, false literature. You understand? And sending it to the Panthers' enemies, and had the Panthers' enemies believing that the Panthers was out here saying this. You dig? You still dealing with Rome. You still dealing with intelligence. You still dealing with spies and espionage. Because in order to rule someone, you got to know, you got to study them. You got to study them. All right, now look at this. Acts 1:1. Look at this. The former treaties have I made, O Theophilus. Now, some people don't know who Theophilus is. Some people say this is Luke writing under a pen name. All right. Or some say, Theophilus actually is a Roman court historian. Some say Theophilus is Theophilus is actually Flavius Josephus. You'll get a lot through it, but just listen to it real quick. That ain't the reason I went here. The former treaties have I made, O Theophilus, of all that Yahshua began both to do and teach. We got a problem here right off the gate, y'all, because Luke is supposedly the one that's writing Acts. All right. And if you know anything about the history, well, Luke, that's Paul's boy. So who Luke is getting his understanding from is Paul, and Paul is someone who never met Messiah. All right. So slow down. Look at what's being said here. Of all that Yahshua began both to do and teach. So whatever Luke is writing, it ain't firsthand. It ain't even secondhand. You understand? It may be third hand and based off oral tradition that's floating around at that time, but it's not firsthand at all. Luke wasn't even a disciple, an apostle. Luke, the physician, is Paul's boy. Them his people. Okay. That Yahshua began both to do and teach until the day in which he was taken up. Look at this. Look at this. Until the day in which he was taken up. After that, he, through the Holy Ghost, had given commandments unto the apostles whom he had chosen. That's another thing right there. Who did he choose? Watch this. And that don't mean, though, like people can't come in the future and still be, you know, students or followers of the ways of Messiah. But you got to understand this. He already ordained his apostles. He already ordained those that, you know, supposed to spread forth the message, or those who will be pillars in this. Like, no, you can't come 2,000 years later and say, oh, I'm an apostle. Or if you don't fit the criteria that Peter and them is about to lay down in this Acts, then you just don't fit the bill. That means you're not an apostle. That don't mean you can't follow Messiah. That don't mean you can't be somebody that Messiah or that the Creator uses to shed forth his light. That don't mean that. But if you're going to take on wear the proverbial suit of being an apostle, then you got to fit the criteria of being an apostle. All right, we're going to read the criteria. And if Paul don't fit that, he's just not an apostle. All right, now that don't mean that, you know, everything you read that Paul purportedly said is wrong. That don't mean that. You understand? But whenever he's teaching something that goes against what the disciples and the apostles, who the Messiah chose, you understand, then that got to get questioned, at least for me. You know what I mean? I mean, I can't make nobody else examine anything. You know what sit well with you and what don't. To me, it just makes more sense that his family and those that he raised up know him better than a man that never met him. That, to me, that just makes more sense. Now, that don't mean that Paul couldn't have had a vision. Yeah, he could have had a vision, of course. But that the vision got to line up with protocol in order for it to be something legit, right? Now, look at this. To whom he showed himself alive after his passion, by many infallible proofs, being seen of them 40 days, and speaking of the things pertaining to the kingdom of the Most High. Let's jump down. Let's jump down. I want to show y'all this. All right, so what's the criteria? What's the criteria for being an apostle? All right. Acts 1 and 15. Let's deal with it. Let's deal with it. You know, it's an unclean phenomenon out there. A lot of people be clowning. As if them brothers done lost the light, they don't deal with nothing no more. That ain't true. We in the Bible right now. Ain't we? Now look at this. I'm just saying, if we dealing with this, then there are things that we've left on the table. All right, Acts 1 and 15. And in those days, Peter stood up in the midst of the disciples and said, the number of names together were about 120. So after the ascension, then it says the movement initially was 120 bodies in the original Yahshua movement. All right, it goes from his apostles and all that to it numbering 120. All right, now watch this. Men and brethren, this scripture must needs have been fulfilled, which the Holy Ghost by the mouth of David spake before concerning Yahudah, which was God to them that took Yahshua. For he was numbered with us and obtained part of this ministry. Talking about who you know is Judas or Yahudah Iscariot. All right. Look at this. So Peter's acknowledging he was numbered with us. Right. He obtained part of this. Now look at this. Now this man, talking about Judas, purchased a field with the reward of iniquity. So it's saying that the field that Judas committed suicide in, he purchased with the money that the Sanhedrin gave him to sell out Yahshua. That's what this Acts is saying. But over in Matthew 27, the money he gave back. So how did he ever purchase it? That's another topic. You know what I mean? But that's another contradiction too. There are two deaths of Judases in the New Testament. Believe that. Now look at this. Now this man purchased a field with the reward of iniquity, and falling headlong, meaning head first, he burst asunder in the midst, and all of his bowels gushed out. Over in Matthew 27, it says that he hung himself. To fall headlong means you jumped off a cliff or a hill head first. And when you hit the ground, your bowels gushed out. That's not the same as hanging yourself. All right, now look at this. And it was known unto all the dwellers at Yerushalayim, and as much, and so as much that field is called in their proper tongue as Seldama, that is to say, the field of blood. For it is written in the book of Psalms, let his habitation be desolate, and let no man dwell therein, and let his bishopric let another take. So basically, his position within the governing body of Mashiach, somebody else got to step up into the apostleship. See this? Wherefore, of these men which have company with us all the time, that the Master Yahshua went in and out among us. So criteria number one is this. Criteria number one is this. If you are to take part in the ministry of being an original apostle of Yahshua, guess what you had to be? You had to accompany with the rest of them all the time. And if that, suit don't fit, then you just not an apostle. That's it. That don't mean you can't be a follower or a worshiper of the Great Spirit, the Most High. That don't mean that the Most High can't deal with you as a vessel and all that. That don't mean any of that. But if you're going to wear the suit of being an apostle, then you got to fit all the criteria of being an apostle. If y'all understand what I'm saying, give me a 4 up in the chat. All right. Wherefore, these men which have company with us all the time, that the Master Yahshua went in and out among us. Meaning you had to know him. You had to physically know Messiah. All right. Look at this. Beginning, trip off this. And then it gives a time stipulation. Beginning from the baptism of John. All right. That's his cousin. All right. Who immersed him in water. All right. Saying you had to be a witness of him coming in and going out amongst us, starting from when he first got immersed until that same day that he was taken up from us. Must one be ordained? Must one be ordained? Who did Yahshua ordain, man? That's the name of the class. We talking about James, we talking about Paul. Must one be ordained to be a witness with us of his resurrection. So if you didn't know him, IUIC and all that, certain men call themselves that these are the apostles and bishops. Wrong again. Wrong again. All right. You had to know Yahshua. You had to be a witness, all right, from his immersion to his ascension. All right. You had to be a witness. You had to physically know him. If not, you couldn't have been ordained an apostle. That's right out the gate. That's right out the gate. All right. So herein is the criteria. If somebody asks you, if somebody asks you, or you ask somebody, was Paul an apostle ordained by Yahshua? You understand? And they say, oh yeah, of course he was. Then bring them to the Acts chapter 1, verse 20 through 22, and show them, well, this is the criteria. All right. Then they naturally gonna go to the road on Damascus, right? But there's 4 different accounts of that conversion. Don't none of them line up. Right, so he ain't got no witnesses. His conversion account don't line up, and he don't fit the criteria of being an apostle. All right, now does that mean you can't get no Deuels out of Saul of Tarsus? Ain't nobody saying that. All right, but you got to be real with yourself. If he's bringing a different gospel than what was ordained, then you got to question it. If his enemies are the apostles and disciples, specifically Yahshua's brother who's running this thing, you got to question that. They got to get questioned. You got to question that. I mean, as your brother, I did. I had to question it. I never knew these brothers was in like conflict with one another. I'm believing the whole time, like the average Israelite, Paul was on one accord with all the apostles. Nah, that ain't the case. When you dig deep and you start looking at this thing from a historical lens, it will blow your mind. You dig? And for the record, look, y'all, I still worship the Most High. I still follow the teachings of Yahshua. That's what it is. You dig? But the historical lens, when you put that historical lens on, you're going to be like, oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, I've been over here. I done got romanticized. They done passed me a romanticized Messiah. A Roman version. You see that? Meanwhile, this thing was more radical than they would like you to believe. All right. So now we understand the criteria, correct? All right. You had to witness Messiah going in and out from amongst the brethren. You had to physically witness. You had to physically been there from the immersion or the baptism by his cousin, his blood cousin, John the Immerser, all the way up until the ascension. All right. Must one be ordained to be a witness with us and his resurrection. They appointed to Joseph called Bar-Sabbas, or son of the prophet, who was surnamed Justice, and one Matthias. Now watch this. And they prayed, all right. And they prayed and said, Thou, Master, which knowest the hearts of all men, show whether of these two thou hast chosen. So they got spiritual with it. They cast lots. All right. And they allowed the spirit, they allowed the spiritual communion to decide who gonna be an apostle. See, they got spiritual to bring a brother into the apostleship. They let the spirit that governed them decide what it was. See that? And look at this. That he may take part of this ministry and apostleship from which Judas by transgression fell, that he might go to his own place. And they gave forth their lots. So this is a spiritual thing. In other words, it ain't like they're using respective persons to choose an apostle or to ordain an apostle. Guess what? They got spiritual and said, we're going to cast lots. And however the lots, fall, that's the spirit choosing who's supposed to be an apostle. You see that? That's how it had to go down. It had to go down like that. If it don't go down like that, then guess what? You're just not no apostle. So I know a lot of people will get offended at that, but that just simply means you're not an apostle. You know what I mean? Straight up. So watch this. It says right here. It says in verse 26, and they gave forth their lots, and the lot fell upon Matthias, and he was numbered with the 11 apostles. You see that? So what we got here is that the apostles had criteria. They got protocol for you to be ordained or numbered an apostle. And based off the protocol, what we're saying is Paul don't fit that. So if he is claiming, when you read him and he's saying, aren't I an apostle? I'm an apostle. Haven't I seen Jesus? Don't I got the right and the authority to lead about a wife or a woman? Or my answer to those who examine me is this. Yeah, Paul was getting scrutinized. He was being examined. You understand? Everybody was questioning his apostleship. You know what I mean? His authority. And that's why, when you read his letters, you'll start seeing, yeah, Deuel was real angry and mad. He was on one. He was on one on a major level. So I wanted to go there first to show that to be an ordained apostle, anybody running around here today claiming they're an apostle are actually liars. All right. If it don't fit that criteria right there, you're not an apostle. Now, you could be a self-proclaimed apostle. According to your own mouth, you're an apostle. But you're not an apostle according to the criteria, according to the protocol. Every movement has protocol. You see what I'm saying? So you're not that. So Geno Jennings, any elders of any Israelite elders, any so-called Christian Episcopalians and ecumenical whoever, none of these men are apostles. All right. And the reason we're going to stand on that is because of Acts chapter 1, verse 20 to 26. If you understand what I'm saying, give me a Yahoo up in the chat. Let's keep moving. Let's keep moving. All right. Let's get into it. Let's get into it. We're going to examine some of this. And if, like I say, if we got time, we'll get into some more research concerning this thing. All right. Acts 15, one of my favorite spots to go to. This is the council at Jerusalem. Finally, Paul has to check in. See, he didn't even go check in with the apostles and all them. And y'all know we deal with the Nazarene literature over this way. So when you get into the Nazarene Acts, you see Paul actually tried to kill James. Thought he was dead. So this is after all that. Like, so if you got a vision from James' brother about his movement, then guess what? First things first, you got to go get right with the brother you just tried to kill. Matter of fact, this ain't just no regular brother. This is Messiah's brother. This is biological brethren you tried to kill. And depending on certain histories like Robert Eichmann, man, they actually say Paul killed James, man. That's why I was telling y'all read that War of the Jews in the back of that Josephus, because the Saul in there, Saulus, he's straight Herodian. He Edomite. All right, straight kindred with the high priest and the king in them. And show you even in Josephus how Herod he started installing his own priesthood. It's right telling you that Saulus and coastal barbers, they straight Edomites, they straight Herodians, bro. It's crazy. It's crazy. You know what I mean? So this is the council at Jerusalem. I see them Yahoos, all praises. All right. So again, I want to jump down. Because there's a misnomer as if the apostles and disciples needed Paul to spread the message to who you would call other nations. No, they didn't. They was already out there doing it. They already had protocol. So that's a lie for it to be said that, you know, oh, I'm the apostle to the Gentiles, and all the rest of the apostles are they only deal with the Jews. Nah, that ain't true. That ain't true. Peter was already out there hollering at Cornelius, correct? I'm talking about according to the biblical narrative. The biblical narrative, Peter was already out hollering at, you know what I mean? Was already out there hollering at Cornelius and all that. So this before Paul. What you talking about? Mark 16 tell you that the disciples were given commands from Messiah to go into the other nations and, you know, keep the mission moving. They didn't need Paul to do that. You understand? So finally, he back up at Jerusalem. Cosmon Cal, yeah, bro. His history's out there. Y'all can look it up. It's just a few videos out there, but there's some histories out there that he actually killed this man. The whole stoning of Stephen in Acts, the 8th chapter, is really an amalgamation of James being stoned, because he was stoned. You know what I mean? So it's a lot going on. And when you start looking through the historical lens, you'd be like, dang, so he messed around and killed the Messiah's brother. Right? We know he attempted to murder him for sure. He already got an attempted murder on his jacket. For sure. Matter of fact, he thought the man was dead. So this is after this, and he finally comes up to Jerusalem. But, bro, if you really remorseful and you didn't change your ways, that's the first man you need to go holler at. You need to go holler at James, man. Get yourself together and beg this man. Beg this man for his forgiveness. David Brown, is a good question. Was Stephen actually James? According to Robert Eisman, yeah, it's more of an account, but the account is pushed forward. See, a lot of things when you start studying the history of it, you'll see a lot of things in the New Testament is backdated, meaning it's written down after it already happened, but it's dated, you know what I mean, to fit in a time that was like 3 decades before them. You know what I mean? A lot of these things are actually written after Jerusalem falls in 70 AD, not before. All right, now trip off this. The crazy part is the earliest letters, the earliest writings of the New Testament, the accepted New Testament that you have, if you look up the chronological New Testament, if you look that up, you know what I mean? Meaning they're going to get the chronological New Testament is going to give you the writings that were written first in history. You know what you're going to find out? Paul's letters predate all the gospels that you have. Paul's letters. His letters predate all the gospels. Paul's letters. Yeah, look up the chronological New Testament. You understand? So basically what you want to do is look at the letters or the writings of the New Testament in the order in which they came out. You understand? Because Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, Matthew, not even the first gospel that was written. Mark was. So when you read the New Testament, you think Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John were the first writings out there in history, and it wasn't. It actually was Paul's letters. Now, ain't that a trip? You mean tell me the gospels that were agreed upon in the New Testament actually are older, actually are newer, are newer than Paul's letters? That's crazy, man. You know what I mean? So look that up. So anyway, let's get into this. All right. Then all the multitude kept silence and gave audience to Barnabas and Paul, declaring what miracles and wonders God had wrought among the Gentiles by them. James's judgment. Here, this is the same James. All right. James is the Messiah's brother, biological blood brother. All you got to do is go back 2 videos ago, we run through the whole thing and show you. All right. All right. James's judgment right here in the New Testament show you that he's in charge. He has the authority. And Paul is the one coming before him to receive a judgment. Now look at this. And after they had held their peace, James answered, saying, Men and brethren, hearken unto me. Simeon. Simeon is another way to say Peter. Simon Peter, Simeon. All right. He another one that's in Josephus that ain't as passive as you think. He want to ban and borrow all Herodians from the temple. You know what I'm saying? Read that War of the Jews. It'll blow your mind how much militaristic and how much more radical the Messianic movement coming out of Palestine really was. That war ain't nothing you sweep up under the rug, and it ain't nothing you sneeze at. Trip off this. Your temple financed the Flavian amphitheater. You know the Colosseums in Rome, the amphitheaters, the circular buildings you do sports in and all that. The Flavian amphitheater actually was financed by the spoils from the temple in Jerusalem. Where they was feeding niggas the lions and birds and making the gladiators fight. All that was built by the spoils from the temple in Jerusalem. You know what I mean? That's crazy. Now look at this. That's right. How Paul have writings before the apostles. You got to really think. Get into it and think. You'd be like, dang, hold on. It's something else going on. You understand? Now remember, if they can't destroy your movement through force, they're going to destroy it through information. That's what COINTELPRO is. What did J. Edgar Hoover tell you? There will never be another black Messiah unless we give them one. You see that? They've been known. See, you dealing with an age-old enemy. They done already studied you. They realized they can destroy the Messianic Nazarene movement that was highly organized and being waged from Jerusalem. Guess how they can destroy it? They can destroy it through information. So when the dust settles, what you have are gospels that were written overseas in a foreign tongue being presented to you. See this? Now look at this. Simeon have declared how God at the first did visit the Gentiles to take out of them a people for his name. And to this agree the words of the prophets as it is written. So Simeon is Peter. Peter already had been out dealing with those of other nations. They didn't need Paul. Paul is there hearing this, that Peter already been out handling business. And to this agree the words of the prophets as it is written, after this I will return and will build again the tabernacle of David, which is fallen down. And I will build again the ruins thereof, and I will set it up, that the residue of men might seek after the Lord, and all the Gentiles upon whom my name is called, saith the Most High, who doeth all these things. Known unto God are all his works from the beginning of the world. So James stands up and say, look, what Peter is doing out there, what Simeon is doing out there, lines up with prophecy. The prophecy, y'all, is Amos, the 9th chapter, verse 11 and 12. That's what James, the brother of Yahshua, just quoted. He quoted the prophets. He said, what the work that Peter is doing can be verified by the prophets. That's what he said. And Paul is hearing this. All right. Now, all the apostles are present. You dig? They in Jerusalem. Everybody present. All right. So trip off this. Known unto God are all his works from the beginning of the world. Wherefore my sentence, my judgment. James is in charge. He's giving a judgment. All right. There are thousands of people here at the time. The Nazarenes run the Temple Mount at this time. Well over 7,000 bodies. We outnumbered the Pharisees at this moment. We took complete control of what was going on in Jerusalem. So he says, wherefore my sentence is that we trouble not them which from among the Gentiles will turn to God. So it's just telling them. So the whole topic was circumcision, all right, and table fellowship, how to eat, what to eat. Also, hey, don't forget the poor in Jerusalem. Remember the poor. That's why Paul was collecting that money while he was out there. Remember the video we showed in the beginning, a polite bribe? That's true. You get over into Corinthians and all that, you start seeing like, dang, Paul straight collecting money. You understand? But that money, he got to bring that back to Jerusalem and get it to those that's running the movement. Yeah. Now watch this. But that we write unto them, that they abstain from pollutions of idols. So idolatry is out the window, period, dealing under the Nazarene vibration. Idolatry is completely out the window. We only deal with the Most High. We only deal with the Creator. Yeah, James is just. Yeah, James is just. That's right. YAH'KI, Messiah's biological brother. I'm gonna keep saying it. That's who Paul hollering at. And right here, he's giving directives to the overseas communities that are involved or that follow the teachings of his brother. These are overseas directives. These are commands. But that we write unto them. So Paul and Barnabas are leaving this council with letters of recommendation, proving that they are vouched for. So the only question is, did Paul teach what he was commanded to teach? Did he teach what the letter said he was supposed to teach? But that we write unto them that they abstain from pollutions of idols. All right. Check about this. And from fornication, and from things strangled, and from blood. All right. So 3 of those things allude to flesh. And then you're dealing with fornication. So he told them make them sexually moral up there. Because they up there doing Kama Sutras and all type of madness. Walking jack naked, competing in the Olympics jack naked and all that type of madness. No, civilize them. All right. Pollutions of idols, things strangled, blood, and fornication. Verse 21. For Moses of old time having every city them that preach him being read in the synagogues every Shabbat day. Now, when you jump down to 29, he give a better understanding of what these pollutions of idols stand for. All right. Now watch this. That ye abstain from meats offered to idols. So they still talking before James the Just, the leader of the Nazarene movement, before he dismisses Paul and Barnabas. And right after this, Paul and Barnabas fell out after this. But before he dismissed them, he reiterates himself. All right, the command for the overseas communities that you abstain from meats offered to idols. The pollutions of idols also have to do with the food that's offered to the idols. All right, that's why when we go to Leviticus in the Torah, chapter 17, they go into offering to devils. They dig, and if you don't prepare and offer and properly slaughter this animal, then what you are chewing on, even today, is considered offered to idols. All right, Paul didn't agree with that and taught something different, but that you abstain from meats offered to idols. Look at this. And from blood, and from things strangled, and from fornication, from which if you keep yourselves, you shall do well, fare ye well. So, Paul finally come and check in. So James like, all right, well, if that's what it is, then this is what's commanded. See, this was the point right here to show if he was all the way down or not. All right, whatever he is commanding me to teach through these letters of recommendation, through these overseas directives. All right, when I get to Antioch, when I get to Ephesus, when I get to Pergamos, when I get to Smyrna, when I get to all these spots, Galatia, Bithynia, when I get to all these spots, I'm teaching what I'm commanded, and here are the letters of recommendation stamping me valid. That's what's going on. All right, if y'all understand so far, give me a 3 up in the chat. Y'all know I ain't trying to lose nobody. All right. Now he a lot like, look, if that's what it is, come on up. Talking to David Brown. He just, he finally came and checked in like he was supposed to. All right. Now, after this, guess what we do? We're going to go over to Paul and read Paul in his letters. Because what you're going to find out today is Paul in his letters is different than Paul documented in Acts. And he going to tell on himself. He going to show you. All right. So this right here is where it starts. For any of my Nazarene scene brothers and sisters in the chat, you already know the breakdown on what meats offered to idols is according to the Torah. According to what they had written. Because remember, at this time, the New Testament wasn't even written. You have the New Testament now, hindsight 2020. But at their time, the only thing they had was Torah. All right. And their traditions. That's all they had. They're all traditions in the Torah. So according to what's written, what is meats offered to idols, what is food offered to idols or devils. So y'all already know that breakdown. That's Leviticus 17, 1 through 7 and verse 13. Leviticus 7, verse 11 through 18. All right. Like like I don't follow the laws of the flesh because I don't chew on animals. And I don't make me better than nobody and none of that. I'm just saying those laws don't apply to me because I don't chew on animals. Ain't no animal sandwiches over here. But if you still chewing on animals and you claim you keeping dietary law, well, according to dietary law, according to Torah, that lamb, that cow, that chicken, whatever you chewing on, whatever flesh you chewing on, it got to be slaughtered how the Torah say it's supposed to be slaughtered, or it's considered offered to devils. So now you know what James is commanding Paul to teach, to abstain from meats offered to idols, because surely when you get up in Galatia, when you get up in Pontus, when you get up in Bithynia, when you get up in Cappadocia, when you get up in Ephesus, when you get up in Smyrna, when you get up in modern day Asia Minor, surely there ain't NAM, there ain't NAM Gentile meat market. But you know today is a grocery store or a butcher stall that is slaughtering any animal how the Torah stipulates. So if it ain't slaughtered how the Torah says it's supposed to be slaughtered, you understand? And if the blood and the fat, if that ritual ain't done by the priest, you understand, that the Torah specifies, then guess what? Every White Castle, McDonald's cheeseburger, every Max chicken and Cane's chicken and Popeye's chicken sandwich, every lamb chop and lamb shoulder and lamb leg and goat stew Nick Rose been eating for Passover or any so-called feast day is offered to devils or idols because it has not been properly slain and offered or how the Torah says. That's what it is. All right. So let's go over there. Now that we know what Paul was commanded, let's go over here. All right, let's get into it, man. Nam. That's right, Hebrew 144. Nam. What you say, David Brown? Israel starts stuttering when you bring out that Leviticus. You ain't lying, boy. Stuttering. So now we understand the Nazarene movement is about staying away from that flesh. Because look at this, you got to abstain from meats offered to idols. You also got blood and you got things strangled. Strangled, blood, and meats offered to idols or foods offered to idols all are alluding to flesh consumption. All right. So now let's get on over here. Let's go to some of Paul's letters. All right. We read it out. We read it from his own words. You know what I mean? Easy work. Easy work. All right. So we see what he's commanded. We see also the criteria to being an apostle. If you're dealing with the biblical narrative, you got to deal with that. Can't nobody tell you they're an apostle today of an apostle ordained by the Creator, and they ain't following they don't follow the protocol. The protocol can't be met. Nobody tell you they eating, chewing on clean, dead animals, and the protocol can't be met. They ain't even slaughtered according to the law you claim you keep it. All right, let's go to Galatians. Let's go to Galatians. This is Paul. Let's go to Galatians. All right. Show a little bit. This is all Paul himself. What I like to do, I like to jump down. All right. Matter of fact, before we go here, let me show y'all. Let's go to 1 Corinthians 10. Let me show y'all what Paul thought about what he was commanded to teach. All right. His understanding of what meats or foods are offered to idols is different. So he don't teach exactly what the leader of the Nazarene movement told. All right. So that means he's teaching another gospel. He's not teaching the same thing. All right. His version of who Messiah is, Paul's version of who Messiah is different than the version that James and the apostles and disciples know. And you as a man or a woman just got to make the decision. Like, what makes more sense to me? What makes more sense, that Paul knew Messiah better than his actual brothers and sisters and disciples that he raised up? This is Paul, 1 Corinthians 10. Let's read some of this. Because remember, we just read where he was to teach to abstain from meats or food offered to idols. All right, well, remember this, y'all. Surely every piece of flesh Every piece of flesh sold in any Gentile market, whether it's a grocery store or a butcher stall or whatever you want to call it. None of it, I'm going to go on record and tell you, none of it, not even in Zion or Jewish Israel, because they not even slaughtering. They not even slaughtering these animals how the Torah say. They came up with their own criteria. They call it kosher. You understand? That's their own, but they get the idea from Leviticus. They can get it from Leviticus. So there isn't not one livestock in this earth that has been slaughtered how the Torah says you're supposed to slaughter that dead animal, or that animal, if you're going to chew on it, you got to slaughter it a certain way. It has to go through a ritual. The priest got to do a ritual over it for it to be considered not offered to devils or idols. Okay? So here's Paul's. This is what Paul teaches. After the apostles and the leaders of the movement gave him letters of recommendation and gave him letters of approval and told him, look, this is what you teach. All right. The next question is, when he got out amongst them, did he teach it? All right. And y'all don't get mad at me. These are purportedly his writings or letters. All right. These are purportedly him talking. All right. Now look at this. Look at this. This is 1 Corinthians 10:25. Whatsoever is sold in the shambles that eat, asking no question for conscience sake. For the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. Now look at this. Now look at this. He's instructing, in response to what he was commanded to teach. In response, because remember, what he's writing in response to something. All right, he ain't addressing it if it ain't being brought up. Remember that. What's understood don't need to be explained, correct? So the fact that he's saying whatsoever is sold in the meat market or the shambles, eat that, don't even ask no questions. The earth belongs to the Lord. That's his reason for saying it don't matter what's sold at the grocery store. Eat it and don't even second guess. Look, don't even second guess it. That's his understanding of it. Because the letters that he gave, the letters that he received, letters of validation and recommendation from James and the other apostles, that letter says, now abstain from meats offered to idols. So if you don't know how that flesh been slaughtered, you ain't supposed to be chewing on it. Okay? Paul says what? Whatsoever is sold in the shamble that eat, asking no question for conscience sake. Look at that. So my question, y'all, is Paul teaching what he was commanded to teach, or is he teaching something different? All right. If Paul is teaching what James, the brother of Yahshua, commanded him to teach, give me a 1. If he is not teaching what he was commanded to teach, give me a 2. 1 if he is in harmony with the apostles, 2 if he's not. Let's see. So he says again, whatsoever is sold in the shambles that eat, asking no question for conscience sake, for the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. Now watch this. Watch this. Yeah, 2, he ain't teaching the same thing. Right? And you don't need 1,000 precepts to prove that he's not teaching the same thing. He don't agree with what he just was told to teach. So his understanding of who Messiah is different. The discipline in the Nazarene movement, you understand, as put down by the Messiah and those he ordained after him, is different with Paul. Paul teaches something different. You see that? All right. Israelite Jews, you say 1. You say he was teaching. So Paul is teaching what he was told to teach. So eat whatever sold at the grocery store is the same as, hey, abstain from meats offered to idols, abstain from things strangled, and abstain from blood. That's the same as eat whatever. Let me show you a different version so you can understand. Maybe you just ain't understand what we're saying. All right, let's go to a different version. Look at this. Same verse, the NLT version. Look what it say. Look what it say. This is not the same. It says, so you may eat any meat that is sold in the marketplace without raising questions of conscience. Yeah, the question is that the same? We wasn't asking about how fast or slow he was going. Is abstaining from meats offered to idols the same as you may eat any meat that is sold in the marketplace without raising questions of conscience. We're not asking how fast and slow he was going. Is that the same as that? Is the question. Look at this. Look at this right here. NIV. Eat anything sold in the meat market without raising questions of conscience. Anything. That means you can eat gator meat. You can eat, guess what, y'all? You can eat booty meat if you want to. You can become a cannibal. Eat whatever is sold in the meat market without raising any question on the ground of conscience. So in other words, you can't even say, hey, what is this? What is this? Look at this. CSB. Eat everything. Eat everything that is sold in the meat market without raising questions for the sake of conscience. That ain't the same. Come on, bro. You already understand it. Israelite Jew, you know that's not the same. Abstain from meats offered to idols, things strangled, and blood is not the same as eat everything that is sold in the meat market without raising questions for the sake of conscience. That ain't the same. And that's what we're saying. We just got to be real with ourselves. It's not. And everybody know that ain't the same. All right. Now, we got people that sympathize with Paul and be like, you know, like bro was just saying, or I don't know if you're a bro or sister Israelite Jews, but like Israelite Jews just saying, Paul was taking it slow. Look, Paul already is under orders. Like this movement already has leadership and structure. And look, trip off this, set up by Messiah himself. You see? Paul, according to what Israelite Jews just said, Paul was doing his own thing. Paul was taking it slow with the Gentile. Are you doing your own thing? All right, now remember that. Remember you were saying he was taking it slow. All right, now watch this. Watch this. Now let's jump down a little more. It get better. Paul is telling you eat whatever at the meat market. Whatever. If it's gator meat, go ahead and eat that. If it's snake meat, all right, whatever means whatsoever. And we just read in different versions, right? And its reason for it is for the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. All right, now look at this. If any of them that believe not bids you to a feast and you be disposed to go, whatsoever is set before you eat, asking no questions for conscience sake. Look at that. Now, how we used to break that down back in the day is, well, ain't nobody going to bid you or invite you somewhere if they're not familiar with you. So if you get invited somewhere and you be disposed to go, meaning you have to go. We just paint a crazy scenario. Then whatever they put in front of you, you can trust that it's lawful for you to eat. Bro, that don't even make sense. That's how we usually break it down, though. You know what I mean? If any of them that believe not, non-believers, such as your family members or whoever, invite you to a feast, like they cooking, right? And you be disposed to go. I mean, I just gotta go. It says, Paul telling you, whatever they set before you, eat that. And don't ask no, and then he double right back again and say, asking no questions for conscience sake. Paul saying, don't even listen to the voice of the Creator telling you, don't eat that. Don't eat that. You see? And remember, in the history or the chronological order of the writings of the New Testament, y'all believe it or not, Paul's letters come first. Paul's letters come first. Wow. You mean he was the first one to write down anything about a Yahshua or a Jesus, you dig? Before the disciples, before the apostles, before all that? Wow. Wow. And when the dust finally settles, the New Testament that's agreed upon was written overseas in a foreign language. In a language that the brothers didn't write. I mean, we can argue all day if they spoke like Paul. He was bilingual. You dig? But there ain't no evidence that the apostles and the disciples and all them, you dig, wrote Greek or even spoke it. Let alone write it. Their language was Aramaic or Hebrew. There ain't nowhere in there that them brothers was writing coin Greek back then. Stop it. We read even in the gospel say they were unlearned men. They didn't have paideia, a classical education in the Greek. It's called paideia. They weren't trained in paideia. the education of the Roman Empire and all that. Now look at this. If any of them that believe not bid you to a feast and you be disposed to go, whatsoever is set before you, eat, asking no questions for conscience sake. Look at this. Now look at 28. It says right here, but if any man say unto you, this is offered in sacrifice unto idols. Now look at this. Eat not for his sake that showed it. Huh? And for conscience sake. For the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. Now look at this. So Paul say, if somebody say, oh, by the way, that rice you eating or that lamb you eating, that's offered to Aphrodite. Then Paul goes on to say, don't eat it for the sake of him that showed it to you, or for the sake of him that served you. Huh? That don't even make sense. No, we're not going to eat it because we commanded not to eat it. It's offered unto devils. And just because somebody tell you or don't tell you it's offered to Aphrodite or it's offered to Baal or Ashtoreth, whether somebody tell you it's offered to a false god or not, that ain't what make it offered unto an idol. What make it offered unto an idol or a devil is how it was slaughtered. If it wasn't slaughtered how the Torah say slaughter it, then it's considered offered to devils, unclean, and abomination. You stand in jeopardy of being cut off, and you'll bear your iniquity. See, so Paul's whole understanding is different than the apostles. It's even different than the Torah. The Torah don't say that it's offered unto an idol if somebody say it is. Now, it's offered unto an idol / a devil if it's not prepared, processed, and slaughtered, how the Torah say. And if it's not done that way, it's considered offered to devils or idols. Hence, you got James, the just the Messiah brother, saying what? Abstain from meats offered to idols. Meaning, don't eat flesh, blood, and things strangled. Meaning, don't eat flesh, because there ain't nobody out there that's even slaughtering these. If you going by the flesh laws, all right, nobody's out there doing that. You see that? So then finally, he telling you, so his whole understanding on meats offered to idols is different than the apostles. So he came and taught it his own way. You see? Someone telling you something is offered to an idol don't make it offered to an idol. It's how it was processed. All right, if y'all understand that, give me a 5-minute chat. All right. All right, give me a 5-minute chat. Shalom, Mikael Gabar, Ben Yehuda. Bless up, King. How you doing? All right. Now, look again. All right. So we say, but if any man say unto you, this is offered in sacrifice unto idols, eat not for his sake that showed it. No, it's deeper than the man that came and served you the plate and said, oh, this is offered. So don't eat it because he the one that served it to you. No, don't eat it because it ain't been properly processed. And then when you get into the whole science of it, dead flesh it has 0% nutritional value. It's destroying you, actually. All right. All right. Now, so we see that. So we see that Paul's message, and this is just about table fellowship. This is just about chewing on animals. His message differs from the apostles and the disciples. You understand? He's saying you can eat whatever is sold in the shambles or the meat markets. And don't even ask no questions, because the earth belongs to the Lord. Then he tell you, if anybody, bids you to a feast, being an unbeliever, and you just got to go, whatever they put in front of you, eat that and don't ask no questions. Dang. So trip off this. Paul must have been getting what? Questioned. See, always remember, these letters are in response to something, a problem, a doctrine. He must have been getting questioned. That's why he keeps saying, stop asking questions and don't ask no questions for conscience sake. He keeps saying, don't ask no questions. Eat whatever is sold and don't ask no questions. Earth belongs to the Lord. Whatever they put in front of you, eat that and don't ask no questions for conscience sake. Huh? Then he say, but if they say it's offered to an idol, don't eat it for the sake of him that served it to you. Huh? And for conscience sake. So if they never say it's offered unto an idol, you can eat it. Nah, man, that's not what's said in the Torah. That's not true. That's not true. All right. For the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. All right. So that right there shows right out the gate that he didn't teach what he was commanded to teach. All right. He started doing his own thing. But again, the Nazarene apostles and disciples were already under protocol by Mashiach himself. All right, so drop that. Let's go over to Galatians. Another one of Paul's letters, supposedly, right? All right, Galatians 1. Let's go to Galatians. All right, here we go right here. I mean, Israelite Jews, if you're sympathetic with Shaul of Tarsus, then, you know, that's what it is. You understand? But look, one thing you can't deny is we going through his letters. This is what he's saying. All right. Now, first thing I want to do before we go back up to verse 1, I want to jump down. Why is Paul defending his ministry? Why he got to defend it? If he don't want to accord with the apostles and the disciples that Yahshua ordained himself, if he is an apostle, meaning he fit the criteria and protocol, then why does he have to defend his ministry? Why? I feel you, Prince Yehuda. Prince Yehuda said I'd have been asking hella questions. I would have been asking hella questions as a brood, like, bruh, what? What do you mean eat whatever, yo? SMH, hell no, LOL, right. You naturally gonna ask questions, man. He over tell you don't ask no questions. Shut up, man. He basically tell you, look, eat whatever you see up in there and don't ask me no more questions. Because he's getting questioned about what it is he's teaching. What he's teaching is different than what's already established. And y'all, we using his letters to prove it. Paul defends his ministry, Galatians 1:11. All right. Paul defends his ministry. These are his writings. All right. But I certify you, brethren, that the gospel which was preached of me is not after man. Stop right there. Stop right there. He's letting you know that what I'm teaching is not what the disciples teach. That's what he's saying. And as we keep reading, you're going to see he started calling them out by name. He started calling them out by name, y'all. Like on some real stuff, you understand? So he has to defend his ministry because his ministry is under attack. And why is it under attack? It's under attack because what he's teaching is opposite of what he was commanded to teach. Remember, he was given letters of recommendation. He was given letters like they vouching for him, right? And he gets all the way out there with the letters and teach something different than what he was commanded, all right? And then he's getting questioned, grilled about what he's teaching. And he like, don't ask no questions. Go eat whatever. Earth is the Lord's. Somebody bids you to, an unbeliever bids you somewhere and you show up, whatever they put in front of you, eat it. The earth is the Lord. Stop asking questions. Like this is what this man is saying. Like he tell you don't even question that. Meanwhile, you got a command saying what? Try the spirit. You got to try that. You got to write the question everything. What do you mean don't ask no question? You got to write the question everything. All right. Now watch this. Look at this. All right. So when he's saying that it's not after man, but I certify you, brethren, that the gospel which was preached of me is not after man, meaning he did not get it from the disciples. I mean, who else would you got it from? Right? Because what they got from Yahshua. So whatever it is you claim you got should line up with what they got if what you got was from Yahshua himself. All right. Verse 12. For I neither received it of man, neither was I taught it, but by the revelation of Yahshua, the Messiah. Look at that. Look at that. So he has to separate what he's doing from what the apostles are doing. He got to, because his ministry, what he's doing is under attack. And they, James sending people right behind him, cleaning up all this mess. So he's saying, look, I wasn't taught by them. What I'm doing is different than them. That's what he's taught. See, if you slow down and reread Paul, you'll get it. You say, dang, he's straight telling you right here. What I teach is based off purely revelation. All right. But there's no way to validate that. There's no way to validate it. All right. Because even his witnesses, his accounts don't even add up. All right. For ye have heard of my conversation in time past in the Yahudim religion, how that beyond measure I persecuted the church of the Most High and wasted it, and profited in the Yahudim religion above many of my equals in mine own nation, being more exceedingly zealous of the traditions of my fathers. But when it pleased the Most High, who separated me from my mother's womb Is he claiming to be a Nazarite? Separation or holy from the womb is what Nazarites claim. It's a direct shot at James and them. See, what Paul know that most of our people don't know today. The apostles and the apostles, or the James, the brother of Messiah, and all the apostles, y'all, they were plant-based. They were Nazarites. You understand? A lot of them from their mother's womb. So for Paul, see, Paul knows at this time, you know what I mean, how James and them get down. So for him to claim that he was separated or made holy from his mother's womb, y'all, that's Nazarite, Nazarene talk. These brothers were consecrated from the womb. When you get into the Nazarene Gospels, you'll see it. All right, so this is more of a shot at James. Like, look, I'm holy from the womb too. Watch this. But when it pleased God, who separated me from my mother's womb and called me by his grace to reveal his son in me, that I might preach him among the heathen, immediately I conferred not with flesh and blood. It's like 3 witnesses he telling you. I ain't go check in till later. Does that make sense? That don't make sense at all. Like, you ain't go. So what was the purpose of Messiah leaving apostles and leaving leadership? What was the point of him giving them fiery? Like, what was the point in all that? If anybody can pop up out of nowhere, claim they saw a vision, you understand, and get on. So he telling you he didn't go confer with flesh and blood. He didn't go check in with the disciples when he first got his revelation. Why not though? Why not though? Right? You have seen the Messiah, which is James's brother, and the disciples. That's their master teacher. So whatever vision and message you have should line up with them. Why would it be split? Why would it be split? Verse 17. Neither went I up to Jerusalem to them which were apostles before me. There you go again. Look at that. He letting it be known that, okay, the apostles is in Jerusalem. I ain't go check in with them. Y'all, so that means what he is teaching is different than the apostles. Because if you didn't get it from them, then whatever you teaching is from somewhere else. Neither went I up to Jerusalem to them which were apostles before me, but I went into Arabia and returned again unto Damascus. Now look at that. See his own words. He ain't gonna deal with the apostles. Paul's message is different. A lot of brothers don't want to deal with that. A lot of brothers don't want to deal with that. You know, they rather just throw shots and call names and get angry. Look, man, if you slow down and reread Paul, you'll see he's problematic. He beefing with everybody. He beefing with James, Peter, Barnabas. You understand? He talking about these men need to get castrated. Like he running his mouth. He cursing them. He talking bad about the brothers with the long hair. So all the brothers with the locks, Paul was against that. He talked bad about the brothers that deal with the herbs. He was against that. And he against the brothers that understand spiritual community. He against all that. He against the whole movement. Right? He came doing his own thing. And a lot of people don't want to accept that. But he's telling you right here, neither went I up to Jerusalem to them which were apostles before me, but I went into Arabia and returned again into Damascus. Then after 3 years, I went up to Jerusalem to see Peter and abode with him 15 days, or fortnight. 15 days, right? But other of the apostles saw I none, save James, Yaakov, the master's brother. So according to Paul's own lips, James is an apostle. I heard brothers say that. James ain't no apostle. James ain't no apostle. And then when I asked you, will you show me a matching list of apostles? Show me in Matthew and show me in Luke and match the list up, name for name. Silence. And you don't even want to do that. You really don't know what I'm saying? Slow down. It's a lot of things that we are just running off our mouth that we really, that a lot of people have not verified or validated. All right. According to Paul's own mouth, James, the brother of the Messiah is an apostle. If y'all see that, according to Paul's own lips, James, the Messiah's brother, is an apostle, meaning he has authority. If y'all see that, give me a 7 up in the chat. I ain't trying to lose nobody. Bless up. Bless up. What you say, David Brown, boy? All right. All right. Give me a 7 up in the chat. Absolutely. Absolutely. According to him, James is an apostle. According to Acts 15, James gave a judgment. What are we even talking about here? According to Paul's own mouth, James is an ordained apostle. According to Paul's own mouth. And according to Paul's own mouth, that's Messiah's brother. Where else we going? Now look at this. Now look what he say, verse 20. Now the things which I write unto you, behold, before God, I lie not. So he telling you he's not lying. He tell you, look, I'm not lying. So if he ain't lying, then guess what? If you gonna say Paul is not a liar, then guess what? You gotta admit that James is an apostle and he's the Messiah's brother. And what Paul is teaching, he didn't get from them. According to Paul's letter, what he teaches, how he teach who we call Christ, he ain't get there from the disciples. Because he just said he ain't lying, right? Now look at this. Afterwards, I came into the regions of Syria and Cilicia and was unknown by face into the churches of Judea, which were in Messiah, and was unknown by face unto the assemblies of Judea, which were in Messiah. How they don't know you? Wasn't you running around wasting everybody? What you had a ski mask on or something? How wouldn't those you were persecuting not know that's you? I mean, after all, you out here killing folk, right? And was unknown by face into the churches of Judea, which were in Messiah. But they had heard only that he which persecuted us in time past now preaches the faith which once he destroyed, and they glorified God in me. All right, now, anybody say they're not lying, that's right. Now let's go back up to the top of Galatians 1. I wanted to go there first to show you that Paul is the one, he's defending his ministry. All right, and based off his own lips, what he teaches is not what the apostles teach. As your brother, I would say, question that. Question that. If you ain't teaching what the apostles teach and preach, and they were the ones Messiah gave the rank to. They the ones he said that they gonna sit on the 12 thrones judging the nation of Israel. They are, not Paul. You know the criteria and the curriculum and the protocol of being an apostle. You know that. You know what consists of meats or flesh offered to idols. You know that. You know Paul, just off his own words, was saying, I didn't learn this from the disciples, but they are apostles. And James is the Messiah's brother. You know all that. You see, he got to defend his ministry. And by him doing that, he's saying that what he's teaching is superior because he got his directly from Messiah through a vision, which don't add up, which I'm talking about the accounts don't add up. So that's why a lot of evangelicals and a lot of church folk believe that Paul understood Messiah better than his biological family and the disciples that he trained up himself. See that? That's where that doctrine come from. All right, now you can choose to believe all you want that this man who never met the Messiah was more powerful, labored more, and knew him better than his biological family and the disciples that he trained. You know, I can't make you believe nothing, but if you choose to believe Paul punked Peter, that's on you. All right. Now look at this. We're gonna go back up to verse 1. Paul, an apostle. Look at this. Paul, an apostle. What we just read, what it takes to be an apostle. You had to have been a witness of Messiah coming in and going out amongst the disciples that he chose from the beginning when he was immersed by his cousin YAH'KI the immerser all the way up to his ascension. All right. Then guess what they did? They put the spirit on it and did something spiritual and cast lots and allowed the spirit of the Most High to choose who was the next one. And so the ordination went down then. See? So look at this. Paul, an apostle. All right. Paul, an apostle, not of men, neither by man, but by Yahshua Mashiach and God the Father who raised him from the dead. All right. That's false, Israelite Jews. All the disciples were given Gentile protocol. Read Mark 16 chapter, start at verse 15. Or start at verse 14 and read down. They were already told to go out amongst the nations and do that. So that's a lie. According to Paul, Paul is the apostle to the Gentiles according to him. All right. So Paul, an apostle, not of men, neither by man. So again, he's letting it be known what I'm doing, I didn't get from them. Strictly revelation, right? And all the brethren which are with me. Look at this. Who else could you be with? What you mean with him? And all the brethren which are with me unto the churches of Galatia. So Paul is separated. He comes out and calls himself an apostle, right? And he says, look, and all the brethren which are with me. Now, why would he write that? And all the brethren which are with me. Dig? It's problematic. What he's teaching is different than what he was commanded to teach. You dig? So naturally, people start choosing sides. All right? Grace be to you and peace. Grace be to you, the brethren with me. Grace be to you and peace from God the Father and from our Master Yahshua, who gave himself for our sins that he might deliver us from this present evil world according to the will of God and our Father, to whom be glory forever and ever. Amen. Now look at this. Perversion of the gospel. Now remember, Paul's gospel, his message is not the same as the message of the apostles and the disciples. It's not. Everybody knows it. Everybody knows it. So keep in mind, all right, who else is powerful enough and pushing the message of Yahshua that can get Paul's attention? Who else? Who you talking about? Don't worry, we're going to get right into it. Now watch this. They got into it too. Barnabas, him and Barnabas got into it, Israelite Jews. So bad they couldn't even keep doing the work. Paul get into it with Peter too. Paul get into it with James, try to kill him. Yeah. Now look at this. I marvel that you are so soon removed from him that called you into the grace of Messiah unto another gospel. See? He talking to the, him and his brethren are talking to the assembly in Galatia. Telling them y'all done received another gospel. The question is, what other gospel and from whom? See, a lot of us never realized with all that talk Paul doing, he's saying that what he's teaching is different than the apostles. The gospel is different. That's why he starts saying on some stuff, he starts saying my gospel. Hold on, what you mean my gospel? What is you saying? Now look at this. I marvel that you are so soon removed from him that calls you into the grace of Messiah unto another gospel, which is not another, but there be some that trouble you and will pervert the gospel of Messiah. Who were troubling the assembly? Who, put it this way, who was coming behind Paul and cleaning up all his mess? Don't worry about it. When we get to the next chapter, he's gonna tell you. He's gonna tell you who he got the problem with. Paul's about to tell you. All right, now look at this. And he's saying whatever they teaching is troubling the assembly because it's challenging what he's bringing out, which is not another, but there be some that trouble you and will pervert the gospel of Messiah. But though Paul and those with him, all right, or an angel from heaven, Shemayim, preach any other gospel unto you than that which we have preached unto you, let him be accursed. Y'all, the we that Paul talking about, when he say we, he ain't talking about him and the apostles, because he don't teach what they teach. He talking about him and the brethren that are with him. All right. So if the apostles come behind Paul and correct him and correct his teachings that he left over there with the assembly of Galatia, according to Paul, that's another gospel. And guess what he just did? He just cursed them. He cursed those that show up and bring clarity to what he's teaching. He curses them. He said, let him be a curse. Let him be a curse. Israelite Jews, you need to read the Nazarene Acts, beloved. Peter was the one that went all over. As a matter of fact, all the disciples, it was all over. Paul, look, listen to me. Paul did his own thing. And later on down the line, 300-400 years later, when they finally start collecting all these writings and agreeing on what was going to be the New Testament, of course, Paul won out. Paul's agenda is more pro-Roman. That's why you really don't got no writings from the disciples and the apostles in the agreed upon New Testament. You don't even got it. Not really. But notice what he just did. He just cursed them. And that we have preached unto you, meaning Paul and his crew, let him be a curse. Proof he cursed them. He just cursed them. This man angry, man. What did you cursing folk for?
Strong's G 331. Anathema. Anathema.
Okay, it says a curse, a man accursed, devoted to the direst of woes. It says a religious ban or concretely excommunicated thing or person, accursed, anathema, curse. Great. See that? So he just cursed them. He just cursed them. You understand? That's crazy. Like he just said, let him be a curse. All right. And then turn around and tell you in chapters later, have fruits of the Spirit. The fruits of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, long suffering, gentleness, goodness. But you just cursed the brothers in them, though. You damned them. You cursed them. Why? Because your ministry is being checked. It don't, you know what I mean? It don't level out. Now watch this. As we said before, so say I now again, if any man preach any other gospel unto you than that you have received, let him be accursed. For do I not persuade men or God, or do I speak to please men? For if I yet please men, I should not be the servant of Messiah. So then right after that, he defends his ministry. Look at that. So the question is, who is he cursing? Who are those who were sent to trouble the assembly in Galatia? To clean up what Paul was talking about. Who is he cursing? All right. He already told you, I didn't get it from man. I didn't check in with the disciples. When I finally did, this is what happened. Let's just go over to Galatians, the second chapter. Go to Galatians, the second chapter. All right. Paul's cursing those who oppose what he teaches. All right. If you understand that, give me a 2 up in the chat. Y'all, we not making none of this up. None of this is made up. These his own letters. Look at that. The council at Jerusalem, Acts 15. Now, that ain't Israelite Jews. I don't know if you're a brother or sister, but you need to go back and look at our last 2 videos we did about James the Just, the chief bishop of all the camps in Yahshua. Go back and watch them. That was 3 videos ago. So part 1, part 2. Yesterday we hosted a debate. This is, we continue today. Go watch them. And if you can sit through that and hear about Peter's letter to James and break down the doctrine of reserve and how Paul tried to kill James and come up with his own. If you could sit through that and still think that he was on the same level, you understand? Then if you want to debate it, I would say, if you can sit through that and still believe that they were on the same level and on one accord, if you want to debate it live, we can do that. All right. The council at Jerusalem. All right. Acts 15. Now, this is Paul's understanding. All right. Let's see if this matches up with what we read in Acts 15. Then 14 years after, I went up again to Jerusalem with Barnabas and took Titus with me also. So he's back in Jerusalem, right? And I went up by revelation and communicated unto them that gospel which I preached among the Gentiles, but privately to them which were of reputation, that by any means I should run or had run in vain. So he claiming when he went up to Jerusalem, he hollered at the top dogs in them, the brothers in them that was of reputation. Over in chapter 1, he said Peter, he stayed with for 15 days. Cephas, Peter, then, he talked about James. He saw him too. All right. Look at this. But neither Titus, who was with me, being a Greek, was compelled to be circumcised. Now look at this. Remember, he said, those that trouble you, he cursed them. Remember, he said that. And that because of false brethren. He's in Jerusalem. He's writing about his experience in Jerusalem and calling the brothers and them fake. He's in Jerusalem. And because of false brethren, unawares brought in, who came in privately to spy out our freedom, our liberty, which we have in Christ Jesus, that they might bring us into bondage. So remember, the Jerusalem council was about circumcision, you dig, and table fellowship. All right, how to eat, dietary law, basically. All right, so he's writing to the assembly in Galatia saying when he was in Jerusalem, it was some fake niggas that ran up on them. You understand? Concerning circumcision. But trip off this, these false brethren got to be up under the orders of who? James. That's right. Remember, this is the Jerusalem council, the council at Jerusalem. The fake brothers that he's talking about are under the orders of James, Yahshua's brother. All right. And Paul keep claiming he got some liberty or freedom in Yahshua, right? And because he got this freedom, whatever the apostles and them teaching is bondage. Watch this. To whom we gave place by subjection. To whom we gave place by subjection. No, not for an hour. Look what he's saying. Paul, like, I refuse to even be subjected to them in Jerusalem. But y'all, those in Jerusalem is ran by James the Just. And then all the other apostles. Paul saying, I refuse to even be subjected to what they talking about. I wouldn't even be in subjection to them for an hour. You see that? That the truth of the gospel might continue with you. Look at this. Look at this. Paul's not only telling you they fake brethren in Jerusalem, that he refused to even be subjected to them. That ain't what we read in Acts 15. That ain't what we read in Acts 15. Paul is defending his ministry because James and the apostles are sending men and him to clean up his message, because what he's teaching is opposite of what Yahshua gave him. He telling you, I refuse to even be subjected to him. To whom we gave place by subjection, no, not for an hour, that the truth of the gospel might continue with you. But of these, oh man, look at this. But of these who seem to be somewhat, but of these, remember, he's writing to the assembly in Galatia about his experience in Jerusalem amongst the apostles. But of these who seem to be somewhat, whatsoever they were, it maketh no matter to me. The Most High accepted no man's person. For they who seemed to be somewhat in conference added nothing to me. Is Paul telling the truth, or is he lying? Is the man telling the truth, or is he lying? He's claiming that when he went there, fake brethren got on him about circumcision. He refused to be in subjection to him. And then he goes and talks about the leaders of the movement, specifically James and Peter and them. Whatsoever, what do you say? But of these who seem to be somewhat, whatsoever they were, it maketh no matter to me. God accepted no man person. For they who seem to be somewhat in conference, we had the Jerusalem conference, right? Added nothing to me. That's a lie. That's a lie. Acts 15 verse 29 says that you abstain from meats offered to idols, from things strangled, from blood, and from fornication. You left Jerusalem with letters of recommendation. And you left Jerusalem with letters that you were supposed to teach from to the assembly, to the Gentile believers in Messiah. You didn't do that. And then you get right here in Galatia, your letter to the Galatians, and say, that didn't even come up. That's not true. What do you mean they didn't add nothing else to him? They told you not only to remember the poor, meaning the poor in Jerusalem, That's why he had to collect money. They also told him to abstain from meats offered to idols, from things strangled, from blood, and from fornication. He just said after the circumcision came up and I shut them down, those that were in that to be somewhat in conference, those in charge, didn't say nothing else to me. That's a lie. That's a lie. That's a lie. Acts 15:29. He's lying. He was given directives from James to the overseas community. This is how it's supposed to go down. He right here lying to you. Look at this. Now look at it. Let's look at this in a different. If you think he's not talking about the apostles and them, let's look at this in a different version. Let's show you. Let's show you. NLT, Galatians 2:6. Let's prove it. Let's prove it. Look at this. Look at this. And the leaders of the church. So y'all, this just ain't even no renegade, wino Israelite that just don't like Paul. He talking about the leadership. Look at this. Same verse, different version. And the leaders of the church had nothing to add to what I was preaching. By the way, their reputation as great leaders made no difference to me. For God has no favorites. Do y'all hear this? Do y'all hear this? So the leaders of the church in Jerusalem are who? And when you find that out, the leader is James. The other, those in leadership are the apostles. All right. So dang, well, he calling them fake brethren. He's cursing them. He's claiming that he's never learned nothing from them. And he's saying he shut them down when it came to circumcision. He refused it to be subjected to him. Not even for 1 hour. And he said, the leaders of the church ain't even tell me nothing else outside the circumcision, which is a lie. And he said, and whoever they are, it don't matter to me because the Most High ain't got no favorites. He's lying. Do we need to go read where what was added to him or what was given to him so he could preach out there amongst the so-called nations? Do we need to go see that? Because right here he's lying. This is a clear lie. And this right here shows you he's talking about the apostles. Who are the leaders of the church? There you go. In Jerusalem. Well, James is the leader of all the camps in Messiah. Not just in Jerusalem, but everywhere. It's not Paul. Peter got to answer to James. It ain't even Peter. It's Yahshua's brother, y'all. We talking about blood rulership. Leadership through bloodline. That's what we talking about. Y'all, this was a caliphate. You know what I mean? What you know today is a romanticized version of how radical them brothers really was. And they destroyed the movement through information via your boy Saulus. Look at that. He talking about the leaders of the church. So we can dismiss all the madness that he was cool with the apostles. No, he was not. Look what he's saying. Look, he talking heavy to them or about them. And the leaders of the church had nothing to add to what I was preaching. By the way, their reputation as great leaders made no difference to me. God has no favorites. Let's go back. Now, Paul against the movement, y'all. Paul against the movement. All right, Galatians 2:6 again. But of these who seem to be somewhat, talking about the leaders of the church, we just call false brethren. Whatsoever they were, it maketh no matter to me. God accepted no man's persons. But they who seem to be somewhat in conference added nothing to me. We figured out that was a lie. All right. Now look at this, verse 7. But contrariwise, when they saw that the gospel of the uncircumcision was committed unto me, as the gospel of the circumcision was unto Peter, y'all, that's a lie. Mark 16, verse 14, or verse 14 on down. They already had Gentile protocol. So it ain't like the Nazarenes were saying the other nations can't serve the Creator. They never were saying that. But it's the same measure of discipline, though. It's the same measure of discipline. So for him to claim that the gospel of the uncircumcision was committed unto him, what is that? The good news of the uncircumcision. And the good news of the circumcision was to Peter. No, that's a lie. That's a lie. They already were out there doing that. They didn't agree on that. Let's go back to Acts. If we go back to Acts 15, he's lying again. Where in Acts 15 did it say that? James actually stood up and said what Peter did amongst Cornelius is in fulfillment of Amos 9, verse 11 and 12, which has to do with physical Gentiles being called by the name of the Most High. You understand? Looking for the Israelites, or looking toward the Israelites to give them the light concerning their Creator. All right. So at the Jerusalem conference, it wasn't agreed that Paul was the apostle of, that Paul was only going to teach the gospel of the uncircumcision, and Peter was going to teach the gospel of the circumcision. Where that was agreed upon in Acts. This man lying, man. This man is straight lying. But what he's doing is defending his ministry, all while throwing the apostles and them under the bus. For he that wrought effectually in Peter to the apostleship of the circumcision, the same was mighty in me toward Gentiles. And for those that believe that Cornelius was an Israelite Gentile or Israelite foreigner in the Roman army, when you read Acts 15, verse 12 on down to 18, all right, James, the brother of the Messiah, goes back over Peter's encounter with Cornelius. And he says that's in fulfillment of Amos 9, verse 11 and 12, when the nations, including Esau and all the other nations called by his name, will receive the light from the Most High's people. So Cornelius is not a Gentile, an Israelite who didn't know he was an Israelite. That's not what that is. So once again, guess what? Paul's lying, man. He's lying. Now look at this. And when James, Cephas, and John, who seem to be pillars, what's all this seeming stuff with this dude, man? What you mean seem to be pillars? James is the chief bishop. He ruled it all. Peter right up under him. John, you know what I mean? So he's talking about the leaders in the church, which are, now you're reading them. These the men he cursing back in Galatians 1. Because they're teaching opposite of what he's teaching. And if they're teaching opposite of what he's teaching, then according to Galatians 1, 6 through 11 or 6 through 10, Paul says they're cursed. What they teach, he don't teach because he ain't get it from them. And even when he did get letters of validation and recommendation from him, he didn't teach that. He taught his own thing. You see? Look at this. This is who we talking about. The leaders of the church in verse 6. Here they are right here. And what he say? They ain't had nothing else to me, and it don't even matter if they did anyway. Most High don't got no favorites. He ain't just dealing with them. That's what he's saying. All right. That's right, Ashley. Just he throwing all shade. He throwing all shade, man. All right, now look at this. And when James, Cephas, and John, who seemed to be pillars, perceived the grace that was given unto me, they gave to me and Barnabas the right hands of fellowship, that we should go unto the heathen, and they unto the Gentiles. That's not what Acts the 15th chapter says. It's not say that. Verse 10. Only they would that we should remember the poor. What poor? The poor saints in Jerusalem. All right, so this right here shows you that Paul was moving around with a collection of money. All right. One of his trips back to Jerusalem, that's what he brought. He brings the money. All right, that's in Corinthians. You know what I mean? He on his way to Jerusalem. Make sure you put up your contribution so I ain't got to wait around all day to, you know what I mean, grab it. I'm on my way to Jerusalem. Lay up your contribution. All right. Look at this. Peter, Cephas, opposed by Paul. Now look at this, man. Now look at this. But when Peter was come to Antioch, I withstood him to the face because he was to be blamed. Now, again, you can believe that this man who never met Messiah, check Peter all you want. I choose not to believe that. You understand? But we only got one side of the story, right? For before that certain came from who? James. James is in charge. James is an apostle. James is a fake brethren, according to Paul. And Paul, like, I don't even care what position or title he holds. Most High ain't just dealing with them anyway. Huh? For before that certain came from James, he did eat with the Gentiles. But when they were come, he withdrew and separated himself, fearing them which were of the circumcision. Oh, so according to Paul, Peter broke dietary law. Same Peter that was like, not so, my Lord. I've never eaten anything unclean. Him. All right, according to Paul, Peter was breaking dietary law, living like a heathen. Look at this. And the other Yahudim disassembled likewise with him, insomuch that Barnabas also was carried away with their dissimulation. Paul got a problem with Peter and all the Yahudim that was sent by James to check what Paul was teaching. See, it ain't hard. All we got to do is slow down. Just look at it. Look at this. Look at this. Verse 13. And the other Yahudim disassembled likewise with him, insomuch that Barnabas also was carried away with their dissimulation. Now look at this. 14. But when I saw that they walked not uprightly, talking about Peter, talking about Barnabas, talking about all the men who are sent by Yeshua's brother James to check the doctrine that's being taught at the assembly in Galatia or Antioch. Huh? Paul claiming he shut everything down. He shut everything down in Jerusalem. He checked niggas in Jerusalem and in Antioch, according to him. Now look at this. But when I saw that they walked not uprightly according to the truth of the gospel, I said unto Peter, listen to this, before them all, if you being a Yahudi live after the manner of Gentiles and not as do the Yahudi or Yahudim, why compellest thou the Gentiles to live as do the Yahudi or the Jews? Look at that, y'all. Y'all hear what Paul just said to Peter? He just opened, according to him, he openly accused Peter of living like a heathen and not like who he was raised to live like. Paul just called Peter, one of the leaders in the church or the assembly, the Nazarene movement, one of the leaders. He just said, you live like a heathen. You don't live like a Yahudim. You don't live like no Israelite. You live like a heathen. You live like a pagan. Is that what he just said? Look at this. I said unto Peter before them all, if you, Peter, being an Israelite, live after the manner of a pagan, a Gentile, and not as do the Israelites, why compel you, the pagans, to live as do the Israelites? Do y'all hear this? He just called Peter, according to him, I don't even believe this happened, but he just called Peter a Gentile pagan heathen and said, you live like a pagan heathen. Meaning, he's saying that Peter don't even follow the teachings of Yahshua. He's saying, boy, you out here living like a heathen, a pagan, a Gentile. And if that's the case, why do the Gentiles out here got to live like Yahudi when you live like them? Look at this. Paul has a problem with the church. He has a problem with the Nazarene leadership. He has a problem with James. He got a problem with Peter, John, Barnabas, and everybody else coming to adjust him and correct him on what he's teaching. See that? Paul just called Peter a Gentile, pagan heathen that don't live by the teachings of Messiah. Now, for us that read the Nazarene Acts, we know way better than that. Peter was that dude. You understand? But according to Paul, he ain't that dude. He lived like a heathen. He lived like a pagan. He lived like a Gentile. That's what he just said. I said unto Peter before them all, if you, Peter, being a Jew, live after the manner of Gentiles and not as do the Jews, why compel you the Gentiles to live as do the Jews? So now we all can agree, whether you sympathize with Paul or not, that he just said that Peter lives like a heathen, a pagan, a Gentile, a foreigner. Well, there's just one problem. Yahshua didn't teach pagan, heathen, Gentile doctrine. So you mean to tell me, as student of Yahshua, Paul is accusing of living like a pagan? One of the leaders of the church, he just said, it don't make no difference. The Most High ain't just dealing with them. A few verses later, he said he lived like a heathen. You believe that? Wow. Wow. This is Paul himself. It's Paul himself. Letting it be known what it is, man. All you got to do is slow down and reread them. Just slow down, man. Slow down and reread them. You'll be like, dang, this is crazy, dude. On one. You know what I mean? He really, really on one. Let's stop the sharing real quick. I want to show y'all a little something. How long we been on? Been on about 2 hours. Okay, we can always do a part 2. What I will do, I'll read y'all some of this I got right here. All right. We got more. All you gotta do is read through his letters. And you be like, dang, dude, got a problem with everybody. What is going on here? What is really going on? See, you got to be real with yourself, man. You got to be real with yourself, man. Look at her. He like, read one more time. HICKMAN. Yosef, my brother Yahosef Ben Israel. Yeah, that don't mean everything you read from him is all, but yeah, if you slow down and reread, dude, just slow down. And you start saying, hold on, dude, got a problem with who Yahshua set up. If that's the case, y'all, we got to question that. That has to be questioned. All right. So on part 2 of this, we'll come back and go more into more of his writings and read more into these books we got. But I want to read y'all something real quick. All right, yeah, dude. And then look, you gotta ask yourself this: how in the hell did he have Roman citizenship? Rome wasn't giving out citizenship. How you as an Israelite got Roman citizenship? Don't none of the apostles, none of them got Roman citizenship. Nobody, Messiah, nobody. All right, you ask yourself. Then he claimed he related to the Herodians. Well, Herod the Great and all his family had Roman citizenship because of what he did for the Caesars. And the Herodians were who? The Roman tax collectors. All right. That's how he had Roman citizenship. That's why when the last time he came to Jerusalem, it was already like 400 foot soldiers already on guard, ready to come rescue him from the Temple Mount. It's just what it is. You did, and you got to ask yourself this, because all the Herodians, they converted to what you call Judaism. They never claimed their Edomite ancestry after that. Never. All right, let me pull up some of this. I think we cool for his letters for the day. All right, we ain't gonna go on too long. I want to read y'all some of this information I've been dealing with, though. Very, very powerful. All right, and then we'll do a part 2. It's easy work, y'all. All the information is there. I just want to slow down. That's my thing. Slow down and get the whole thing going. All right. It's a lot we got to reconsider with this, y'all. It's a lot. All right. All right, I want to read y'all something out of this. Some of the book we're going to come out of. I'm going to change the thumbnail. I'm going to change the thumbnail on the screen. All right. Let's see something real quick. How we look. Okay, we're good. All right. Bow. All right, right here. Operation Messiah. This is what we're dealing with right here. St. Paul. This is a good one. I, suggest y'all go grab this. Okay, it says St. Paul, Roman intelligence, and the birth of Christianity. All right. There were Theegis, Volksschooling, and Rosemary Sheldon. All right. If y'all don't got it, look it up. I think you'll like it. It's a great read. It's a great read. All right. Hold on one second. Send this off real quick. All right. I'll look on screen real quick. All right. I don't know if some of y'all got this, but it's very, very good. All right. Now, let's get into it. I'm going to jump up to what the Nazarenes and all of that. And when we come back on part 2, we'll read a little bit deeper into it. All right. All right. This right here, Saul the persecutor. This is a good one. All right. Stoning of Stephen. That's a good one. Let me see. Who was Paul working for? Oof. Hold on. Okay, I see that one right there. Bang. Oh, yeah. We're going to read some of this. All right. So this right here, page 59 of that. I think I probably should get into some of this right here first. All right. All right, Saul the persecutor. Chapter 4 of that book right there. All right. You got this, Iman said, I living. Yeah, it's fire. It's fire. Jacksonville says, I guess that's what he meant about becoming all things to all men, right? Saul the persecutor. Saul, prior to his conversion, was involved in persecuting the followers of Jesus. This activity is mentioned in Acts 8, 1 through 3, Acts 9, 1 through 2, Acts 22, 4 through 5, Acts 26, 9 through 11, as well as in Paul's own letters, 1 Corinthians 15 and 9, Galatians 1, 13 and 23, and Philippians 3 and 6. All right. The Acts 9, the Acts 22, the Acts 26, and the Galatians 1 are all accounts of his conversion. And y'all don't none of them match up. Read them for yourself. It'll blow your mind. Don't none of them match up. All right. But as usual, there are serious incompatibilities in these accounts. The degree to which Paul persecuted the followers of the way, the identity of these people, their locale, the purpose and extent of Saul's persecutions, and his jurisdiction are still subjects of debate. The major problem is that the material in Acts and in the letters does not always agree. You heard this. I said it earlier. Paul that you're reading about in his letters in many ways are different than the Paul you're reading about in Acts. Yeah. Real talk. Right here it says, the major problem is that the material in Acts and in the letters does not always agree. We thus know distressingly little about Saul's persecution of Yahshua's followers. For whom did Saul work while performing these acts? And those in whose name did he persecute? Who were his victims? It is clear that Acts uses Saul's persecuting as a foil against which to display his latter missionary activity to advantage. So this bias offers little help. Given the gaps in our knowledge, it is no wonder that scholars have come to no consensus on the nature of or the motivations for Saul's life as a persecutor. The picture given in the New Testament, sources of Saul in the days before his conversion, are contradictory and suspect. Ooh, wait, I ain't write it. Be mad at me, I ain't write that. Picture given in New Testament sources of Saul in the days before his conversion are contradictory and suspect. The stoning of Stephen. All right, so we're getting into that too. I want to keep going. All right, let's get down to whom Saul was working for. All right. Right above that, for whom was Saul working for? It says right here. Acts, however, implies that the persecution was initiated at the highest levels of the Hebrew establishment by Caiaphas, the high priest, all right, and the members of his council. Why was the high priest doing this? And what did he have against the Nazarenes? You brothers and sisters. You faithists, brothers and sisters. All right, you insane brothers and sisters. Why would the agreed upon, or matter of fact, not even agreed upon, the Herodian high priest, who Herod had, and I say Herodian because Herod and them appointed the priesthood by this time. Why would they have a problem with the Nazarenes? Why would they be against the Nazarenes? All right, now watch this. It says right here, for whom was Saul working? The only circumstance under which the high priest would employ his police force to arrest and imprison people would be if these people had shown themselves in some way to be a political threat to the Sadducean, Sadducee, those are the high priests. The high priesthood come through the Sadducees, not the Pharisees, Sadducees. All right, so again, the only circumstance under which the high priest would employ his police force to arrest and imprison people would be if these people had shown themselves in some way to be a political threat. This is political. This Nazarene movement, this faithist movement, it's political. That's why all Israel shook up. Everybody mad. This is why. This is why. It says right here, to be a political threat to the Sadducean hierarchy and the Roman regime. If Saul was employed by the high priest to arrest people and imprison them, it can only mean one thing, and that is that Saul was a member of the high priest police force. Pardon people. Yeah, if he's given the authority to imprison you, kill you, and lock you up, y'all, who that sound like today? That's police. He them people. He them people. He worked for them people. Saul was a member of the high priest police force. It would have been his job to arrest anyone belonging to a movement that threatened the status quo. What kind of Jew might have taken up political police work in the service of Caiaphas? That's a good question. That's an excellent question. What kind of a Yahudi, what kind of an Israelite might have taken up political police work in the service of Caiaphas? The police force of the high priest was no doubt an eclectic group consisting of junior priests with allegiance to the Sadducean party or belonging to those few families from whom the high priest was traditionally selected. Added to these were added to these were the Jesus for, hold on, let me see. That's 59. Oh man, I jumped one. Okay, let's go to 60. All right. After these were the mercenaries of various kinds, including Jews or even non-Jews. Such mercenaries may have been relatively indifferent to Hebrew nationalistic feelings and were perfectly prepared to endure the unpopularity that came to those willing to sell themselves to anyone wielding power in the interest of a hated military occupation. These are a number of passages tying Saul to the high priest. I heard this? I heard this? Yeah, definitely undercover. Definitely undercover. There are a number of passages tying Saul to the high priest. In Acts the 5th chapter, Saul is described as saying he cast his vote against the followers of Yahshua, thus helping to condemn them to death. This can only refer to the voting of the Sanhedrin or the Council of Elders. See, the Sanhedrin back then was the supreme court in Israel. So any type of cast and vote, y'all, this means this. Our whole movement was secretly indicted. It was indictment season. That's what happened. They got in. Look, we were and are a political threat to the establishment. Look at this. Which was convened to try capital cases. Wow. So what Acts is claiming for its hero, Saul, is that he was a one-time member of the Supreme Court, the Sanhedrin. This is highly unlikely. If it were true, Saul surely would have mentioned it in his letters when listing his credentials as a Pharisee. Wow. Wow, how you a Pharisee but work for the Sadducees? Wow. Wow. Look at this. Look at this. The subject of the Pharisees brings up another interesting point. We have argued that Saul was probably not a Pharisee. But even though scholars who accept Saul as a member of this group are forced to admit that the evidence seems clear, the Pharisees were friendly to the Nazarenes. This will make Saul the only Pharisee who joined forces with the high priest to persecute the movement. Wow. Wow. This book saying he even lying about being a Pharisee. Because why would he go to the high priest in Acts 5? The high priest is the Sadducees, the Sadducees. So you a Pharisee that work for the Sadducees or the high priest police force? Where they do that at? Look at this. In order to get around this conclusion, scholars need to invent a category into which they could put Saul other than that of collaborator. One scholar, for example, argues that Saul belonged to a group or movement among contemporary Jews that enforced within the Jewish community a communal discipline of maintaining the traditional way of life. They wish to oppose pressure from the Roman Empire and its Hellenistic predecessors to adopt the Greek way of life. They believe Saul's description of his own fanaticism, Galatians 1:13-14, and Philippians 3 and 6, fits just such an understanding of this and his zeal for the tradition of his ancestors. The traditional Israelite way of life, he was attempting to destroy the early church, the fledgling Yahshua movement that was breaking with Israelite communal discipline as Saul then understood it. Look at it. According to his interpretation, the religious and political dimensions of the movement were inseparable. Its agenda was evidently to maintain the independence of Israel insofar as possible in the context of the Roman Empire. They were to resist the pressures of assimilation. They were to resist the pressures of assimilation, all while overtly being anti-Roman. Overtly anti-Roman activity that might provoke Roman military action against Israel. Not everyone accepts this explanation. We believe members of the Nazarenes were much more militant than this. Y'all see this? Y'all see this? We believe members of the Nazarenes were much more militant than this. Among the Nazarenes, there were at least some who wanted complete independence from Rome. Some scholars still believe that Jesus and his followers were among these members of the group, and that this led to his execution. Some scholars still believe that Yahshua and his followers were among these members, meaning the Nazarene movement was more militaristic and more radical than what it has romantically been pictured to be today. Right? And his followers were among these members of the group, and that this led to his execution. It is possible that his brother James and some other apostles did not abandon their nationalistic aspirations after Yahshua died. As we will see in latter events, some members of the movement were armed and willing to kill Paul. There is no evidence to suggest that this tradition was started only after Yahshua's death. In fact, at the time of his arrest, the movement was armed. Therefore, killing enemies might have been more in the spirit of the original Yahshua's movement than the pacifist turn the other cheek attitude that Saul started preaching later. If we accept the possibility that at least some of the Nazarenes were anti-Roman, then the case becomes much clearer. And the groups line up like this. The temple was run by the Sadducees, the Roman quislings who kept the peace in Jerusalem for the Roman overlords. It was under their preference and motivations that provide the background for Saul's actions. As we have seen in chapter 2, claiming that Yahshua was the Messiah was both a theological and a political statement. Look at this. Claiming Yahshua was the Messiah was both a theological, religious, and a political statement. Yahshua himself was executed on a charge of sedition, meaning what he spoke could have started a riot. And anyone continuing his movement or expressing any Hebrew nationalistic sentiments had to be watched and controlled, especially if they employed anti-Roman overtones. It was always in the best interest of the Sadducees to keep suspected revolutionary activities under close surveillance and to keep the Romans informed. They were snitching. So Paul was employed by the high priest police force. The high police force basically are the Sadducees. Paul was working for the Sadducees, and their job was to keep a close watch on any revolutionary activity and to report to the Roman overlords and to keep the Romans informed before Roman military action was taken and more Jews were suppressed. Better to turn over one or two cranky schematics than have the Roman boot stomp down on large numbers of Jews in Jerusalem. Jewish attitudes towards messianics, those who, had a messianic expectation, who believe in Yahshua. Jewish attitudes toward messianics may have been mixed, but the Roman response rarely was. The proclamation of Yahshua as Messiah was so politically dangerous. Look at this. The proclamation of Yahshua as Messiah was so politically dangerous that the fear of savage Roman reprisals causing irreparable damage moved Jews like Saul to silence the Messianics or who? The Nazarenes, yo. Nazarenes. All right. We get good. I'm gonna jump up though. I'm gonna jump up just a little bit so y'all can see this. Oh, that's it. There you go. That deal bounced on me. Hold on, y'all. Bounce. Where that deal at? Wow, that ain't it. Somebody mad. What happened? Hold on. That ain't it. Man, what is going on with my Wow, that deal straight vanished on a bro. Ah, that's messed up. Hold on. That's not that one. That ain't that one. It ain't the StreamYard. Let me see something. There you go. I'm finna say, man, where that deal at? This is the two. Got some more for y'all. Just real quick, we get up out of here. Just real quick. Right to the point. Page 66, Operation Messiah. All right. We believe Saul was persecuting Nazarenes because they were Messianic Jews who believed Israel could be freed from Roman rule by the Messiah. Wow. The Jewish authorities most answerable to the Romans were the high priests and the Sadducean quislings. They knew quite well that the Romans did not take accusations of sedition lightly. The Romans had executed Yahshua on just such a charge, sedition, like 40 others listed by Josephus and probably many more whose names we will never know. The leader of the Nazarene community was James. One scholar draws a portrait of the early community of James as a nationalistic, messianic, priestly, and xenophobic sect of ultra-legal pietism. Ooh, wait. All right. Saul's enemies. We must identify clearly the group we think opposed Saul. Directly following the execution of Yahshua in 33 CE, his movement counted roughly 120 members. We read that in Acts. These people referred to themselves as Nazarenes. They were also called the followers of the way. Their leaders were James, the brother of Yeshua, and, drum roll, Peter. Oh, wait. Oh, wait. Oh, wait. Oh, my bad, y'all. All right, stop screen. Stop sharing that real quick. All right, y'all. I want to come on real quick and get that done. Praises to the Most High. All right. Let me see what you say. When it says that the Messiah's movement was militant, does that mean he wasn't a turn the other cheek teacher? What you'll find out is this: that movement was way more militaristic and nationalistic than what a lot of people would like to admit. All right. But there were different branches. Everybody was not a zealot. Everybody was not a Sakari. All right. Like, just like with any movement, any movement, you got to go get with the priests. Well, who are the priests of the movement? You got to go deal with James and them. All right. You got to go deal with Peter and them. All right. But the wars we were fighting against Rome from 66 of the Common Era all the way up to 73 CE, some of those battles Israel won. And you ain't beating Rome at all unless you're somehow coordinated and in order, right? That was a highly organized thing that went down. 1 million people died. 1 million people died in that war. You understand? So there are different factions within the movement. All right, you got your ones that'll cut you as soon as you blink. You ain't playing with you. You got those that's, the priests that commune with the spirit. That the soldiers gotta go holler at. See what I'm saying? And they were fighting for the redemption of Zion. Believe that. It's on the coins. We got the coins and all that. They minted coins and everything for the redemption of Zion. All right. All right. Yeah, they were very, very disciplined, very radical to the status quo. All right. And as we did today, y'all, we went to Paul's own letters. Went to his own letters. And according to his own letters, he got a problem with the disciples. He got a problem with the apostles, according to his own letters and writings. You dig? So all praises, glory, and honor to the Most High. Forever live the teachings of the righteous Messiah in the heart and minds of all you brothers, you faithful brothers and sisters. Shout out to my Nazarene, same faith that's created gang, all that, created gang, all that in the building. Y'all already know. But if ain't no questions, though, let's pray out. Let's go ahead and pray and get our minds, humble our minds, and get our minds together. All right? Get our minds together. And ask the Most High to surround us with his ministering angels. It's real out here. All right? People getting laid down left and right to surround us with his ministering angels to keep us and guard us from all evil, seen and unseen. That's what it's about. Fat P, my beloved brother. Yeah, start this over. We went a little bit over. We went over 2.5 hours, but we shortening all the classes, everything we doing now, so we don't overload everybody's plate, and then they can go back and study that real quick. And if they ain't got some of the stuff, like we was reading out of this today, I'm gonna change the thumbnail to this picture. All right, reading out of that today. We got all type of, we be getting into it. I said, I suggest y'all get this too. This deal. Somebody gonna be mad at this one. It's information though, y'all. Good night. This is a good one right here. The parallel New Testament. All these are older than your Masoretic text you got right here. And in her, in Romans 16:11, Paul straight come out and call the Herodians his relatives. His relatives. Matter of fact, I might show y'all that before we get up out of here. We get more into the other book I showed you, and then this next time as well. We're just gonna go through Paul's letters and then go through what the scholars are saying about it and line it up. All right, but Paul definitely was calling Peter a heathen, a Gentile heathen. You know what I mean? Look at Pete. It's all good, man. All praises, glory, and honor. You want to see that? Okay, let me show y'all that. Bro, say, show us that. Let me show y'all that Yeah, Paul makes his claim that he's related to the Herod. So when you read Romans 16:11, right? Let me show y'all that real quick. And then we can go ahead and pray on out, man. Pray on out. Let me show y'all that. So in Romans 16:11, right? And it's crazy, y'all, because we using his own letters. He supposedly wrote Romans too. Okay? So let me share this with you real quick. And then we're going to pull it up. We're going to pull it up in the parallel New Testament. Different Syriac versions of the Peshitta and all that. So it's 3 of these side by side. All right. Ancient, according to the Eastern text, George M. Lamsa, New Testament translation. James Murdoch, New Testament translation from the Syriac Peshitta version. See that? Then J.W. Etheridge, English translation of the Peshitta. So we're going to look in here after we look at the KJV. This, all 3 of these versions are older than your KJV you got. All of them. All right. The Peshitta is 2nd century, 1st and 2nd century. All right. So we're going to go and read Romans 16:11 out of that too. All right. All praise to the Creator. My brother Prince Yahudah Levi. Y'all already know what time it is, man. And also, y'all, this Wednesday coming up, I'm supposed to be on the Scorn Black Man podcast. Brother Zadok, brother Don Yehuda, and brother Hilltop Brew. Hilltop 12 Tribes. Matter of fact, we're going to be going over what we're talking about today. Stuff about Paul. I'm going to let the brothers ask me some questions and, you know, have stuff already pulled up, share the screen, answer questions. Let's rock. So that's this Wednesday, I believe 8 Central. I'll share it with y'all, though. Easy work. All right, those brothers is doing a powerful. They always have different builds over there. I have different people on, and they discuss that. One thing I like about them, they're not afraid to discuss and talk about these things. Because like we were talking about last night at the debate, right? That the elders before us, that's Israelites and all that, man, they got all this knowledge, but they don't deal with each other. So then naturally the generation beneath them don't deal. Us, we don't deal. So I'm turning down all that. Nah, bring all that to the table so we can see what's going on. Let the crowd ask the questions and let the practitioner, whoever is versed in the book, go into the books and bring it out. You understand? We need to bring all the information we got from these elders, bring it to the table so we can comb through it. That's what it's about. Let me show y'all this real quick. All right, first we're going to go to Romans 16. It's real quick. It's Paul again. Romans 16:11. Salute Herodian, my kinsmen. Greet them that be of the household of Narcissus, which are in the Lord. All right. But right there it says Herodian. All right. That's the Herods in them. It means the littlest Herod. All right. Nonetheless, there's still Herod in them. Right. Salute Herodian, my kinsmen. And this is a letter. Trip off this, y'all. This is a letter that Paul is supposedly writing to the assembly in Rome. Huh? What is the Herodian connection to Rome? Well, the Herodians are the Romans tax collectors. All right. The Herodians got Roman citizenship. Paul just said that the Herodians are his kinsmen, right? All right, now that you see that, let me show you that in the Peshitta versions. Watch this. Let me share that. I already had that pulled up too. Share screen. Got you. Easy work. Everybody thought we was lying, man. You hating, bro. Ain't no reason to hate. All right. We got you. Easy work. We got you, big dog. Easy work. Nah, man. So I just showed y'all that book, right? All right. Right here. Just so y'all can see. It is Romans 16. The Etheridge, Murdoch, and Lamsa versions, side by side. Okay. That's in Romans 6. You see right over there at verse 11. What that say right there? When it says salute, it means ask for the peace of. Ask the peace of Herodian. My who? My who? My who? Look at that. Look at that. What do we have here? Look at that. Paul telling you he's related. He's a Herodian, y'all. He's related to the Herods. Yeah, he claimed to be from the tribe of Benjamin. The Herods claim they from the kingdom of Judah. They don't claim they don't never come out and claim they Edomites though. Paul right there telling you he's an op, y'all. He's blood related to the very men who killed John the Baptist, who were complicit in killing John the Baptist, who were complicit in killing Messiah, who were complicit in killing James, who were complicit in killing Simon Bar, his brother, who were complicit in killing YAHWH, his other brother, who were complicit with the Romans in destroying Jerusalem, the Herodians, the Flavians, the Alexanders out of Egypt and all them. All of them were part of Caesar's court, Vespasian's court, Titus' court. They all are Flavians. Yes, the Herodians and the Flavians. The Herodians and Caesar's house are blood related. How do we know this? Bernice is mentioned in Acts. Bernice is directly a Herodian. Huh? Guess who she's a mistress of? Drum roll. Huh? Titus, the son of Vespasian. Titus that conquered Jerusalem and carried away the spoils, including the menorah and everything else, including all your Torah scrolls, and deposited everything in the library in the catacombs in Rome. Titus, you mean to tell me this heifer Bernice, a Herodian, a mixture of Herodian and Maccabean blood, in Acts, Bernice is a mistress of the damn Caesar. Wow. Wow. You can't make this stuff up, man. You cannot make one of this stuff up. No, that's not the Herod. Yeah, he related to him, Key. But you know, Herod the Great had a gang of children, and then his sons took over and divided his kingdom up. And you know, then you get the Agrippas, and then Agrippa II, and then you know they were sending their children to be educated in Rome and to receive paideia, formal Roman education. So that's why you'll see Marcus Aurelius Agrippa in Rome and all that. It did, yes, the Herodians are directly tied in to Caesar's court. Yes. And Paul right here is saying that he bloodline related to him. My relative. Y'all see this? If y'all see that, yes, Paul is on record saying he from the tribe of Benjamin and he an Israelite. Y'all, all the Herods, they all of them claim Israelite culture. Hell, Herod the Great was sitting as king of the Jews, king of Judah. They also were what? Picking who would be a part of the Sanhedrin, which would be judges in the court and the priesthood. This is what's going on. But right here, Paul is saying that what? He blood related to the ops. Blood related. Herodian, my relative. All right. Look at that. Herodian, my relative. Wow. So he's related. That means he has relation. You see that? So it ain't good enough for nobody to say, oh, no, he ain't related. He was just playing. Nah, we ain't playing them games either. You mean he was just playing? You know what I mean? What you mean? All right, NehemiYAH. We said, Paul said, don't question nothing. But that's what's up, y'all. So look, we about to pray on out. You did. Made the angels of the Most High, the angels of the Creator, guard every last one of you brothers and sisters, you know, with light and protection from all evil seen and unseen. All right, so let's go ahead and pray out, humble ourselves, and let's get her done. Let's get her done. Hey, Heavenly Father, Most High Creator, Yahweh, Yahweh, YHWH'S, the all in all, the all is, the ever present, the always was, is, and forever shall be, the great I am, the mighty Yahweh, omnipotent, omnipresent, the all in all, who has his Torah in everything that has creation, everything that has life, power of thy power, Creator, wisdom of thy wisdom, healing of thy healing, We invoke a massive healing vortex upon all those who are in need in this hour. In your name, Heavenly Father, in your name, we ask you that you strike down every unclean spirit, bind up every unclean spirit, bind up every so-called sickness, bind up every so-called disease, bind up every so-called mental disease. You understand? Any so-called shortcomings that we have, bind it all up in your mighty and powerful name. Power of thy power, Creator. Wisdom of thy wisdom. Healing of thy healing. We touch and agree right now. We touch and agree right now to see a massive healing. We touch and agree right now to come against every unclean spirit, every so-called sickness and disease, and every so-called mental disorder. All you false gods, we put on notice right now in the name of the Creator, Yahweh. We bind you, we rebuke you, and we command you to move out the way of these brothers and sisters. For every last one of us have dedicated our minds, our bodies, and our spirits to be a temple of the great spirit, Ruach HaKadosh, the mighty Creator, the great I am that I am. In the name, power, and authority of the Most High, we pray and we declare war against the kingdom of darkness. All praises. Hallelujah. 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 Praise the mighty Yah. Y'all already know. Y'all clip up. Power of thy power, Heavenly Father. Power of thy power, wisdom of thy wisdom, healing of thy healing. Direct our minds, direct our hands, direct our sincerity. For we touch and agree to stand boldly against every so-called false god, false deity. We put all these false gods on notice. And that we come at every last one of you with the power and the essence and the brightness and the light of the Most High Creator, Yahweh, Yahweh. Until the next time, brothers and sisters, if y'all any prayer requests, any questions, y'all know how to email us and get at us. Love y'all indeed and in truth. Remember that. Bust your guns, man. Bust your spiritual guns. Pull your spiritual swords. And may the blessing and healing of the Creator forever be upon every last one of you brothers and sisters. Whatever you're dealing with, you can be delivered from that. Believe that. I don't care if it's sickness. I don't care if it's an unclean spirit. I don't care if it's a mental disorder. Power of thy power, O Heavenly Father. Power of thy power, Yahweh. Strength of thy strength. Healing of thy healing. We invoke a massive healing. In your name, we invoke a massive healing vortex upon the mind, body, and spirit of all those in need worldwide. And we command that vortex to strike in your name. In your name, in your power, and your authority. Hallelujah. All praises. We love y'all brothers and sisters indeed and truth. Believe that. Y'all stay strong out here. And we got so much info to bring out. We just going to slow roll it slowly and bring it on in and over the finish line. You believe that? Know that. You understand? And remember this. Every last one of y'all sons and daughters of the Creator. Never to be worshipped. No, only the Most High is worshipped. Never to be worshipped. You understand? Every last one of y'all sons and daughters of the Creator, or gods and goddesses. So when we say peace to the gods, Creator gang, you understand the gang is an acronym for gods and Nirvanian goddesses. Psalms 82:6 for ye of gods. John 10:34. If he called them God to whom the word of God came, then the word can't be broken. So rise up, God. You understand? And we ain't saying that in a way that man and women ought to be worshipped. Nah, you ain't to be worshipped. You understand? But understand this. God is a title. Lord is a title. The angel is a title. Guess what? Bestowed upon angels and men. A lot of people don't want to hear that. No, all praises, glory, and honor to the Most High. Love you, brothers and sisters, indeed and in truth. And look, if we ain't there for each other, who will be? All right? So if you need it and we got it and we can assist, then that's just what we gonna do. You understand? Because we live to be vessels. We live to bless the Most High's creation. All right? So when we say peace to the God, that's what we mean. Peace to the righteous gods and goddesses. You brothers and sisters. And if anybody got a problem with it, kindly point them to their Bible. Psalms 82:6 say ye of God. And all you sons of the Most High, or children of the Most High. All right, so raise up, God. Peace to the gods. You understand? And we ain't talking about no false gods. And we ain't talking about worshiping no man, woman, or child. You understand? But in essence, that's what you become one day. You understand? You have a duty one day to assist those who are still living. You understand? Most High give you a job. Hey, go raise that up right there. Go deliver that right there. Get them together right there. You understand? So even when you die and cross over, you're still a servant to the Most High of the Creator's creation. Whether you are angel or whether you live in the flesh, you still got to what? You still have to live an existence that's dedicated to raising up, that's dedicated to resurrection, perpetual resurrection. Still got to live that. You dig? So when we say peace to the gods and the righteous gods and goddesses, when you hear us say create a gang, we talking about you brothers and sisters that striving to be righteous. Because one day, as a son or a daughter of the Creator, you'll rule worlds. And that's too much for a lot of people to handle, but hey, it sounds good to me. I don't know about y'all. So until the next time, y'all, we love y'all indeed and true. Shout out to all the haters, jaw jackers, and naysayers. We love y'all too. Bless up. You ain't doing something right if you ain't got haters. Until the next time, love all y'all indeed and true. Strap up, back up. Yahoo. Shout out to all the Nazarene scenes, faithers. Create a gang, baby. Gang, gang. Let's get it. Yahoo.